Will this be on YouTube or Twitch?
Both.
Both? All right. I'll just put it on my list on YouTube then.
What's good, everybody? Welcome, one and all, to the Minds of the Ecclesia. I am your host, Lethe Water Kai, and we have had a format change. So as of now, we will be doing one-on-one conversations for the first 45 minutes to an hour with a semi-open panel afterwards. So I hope you guys enjoy the format change, and I'm always open to feedback. But glad to be back and see you all. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, man.
And my guest for today is Alex Kirsch. Go ahead and give yourself an intro, my dude.
All right. So my name is Alex from the Alex Kirsch Project. I used to stream more often, but I wouldn't, let's just say work and like getting guests has been proven to be difficult. So now I just primarily do short videos from time to time. That's my main focus. But I'm going to try to do more videos in the near future, but I also like to pop on to Lethe's panels. I always have a really good time. They get animated sometimes, but we'll try to spread more wings, get more panels. So thanks for having me on again, Lethe. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So I wanted to pretty much have a little discussion with you, like kind of about how you got to where you are in the political mindset of things, like what your journey has been through this, and also how you feel about the current political limbo we're in, since, you know, we're waiting for a new president to step up, and there's a lot of speculation on what that new president may or may not do.
Okay, so a little bit about my political background. For years, I was a staunch independent. Like the person that turned me to be an independent was Jesse Ventura, because I believe in a lot of the views that he holds dear. Like he's all about like, you know, socially liberal, fiscally conservative, like making sure that you can like balance a good budget. I'm completely against like fraud, waste, and abuse, but like for years, so in 2008, I was in Iraq at the time, and I did not vote because I didn't know anything about absentee ballot voting. 2012, I voted for Mitt Romney. I said I voted strictly based upon how I felt the debate performance went. I felt he did fairly decent. I don't regret my vote whatsoever. 2016, I voted for Gary Johnson simply because I couldn't stomach voting for Donald Trump. And I just didn't feel right about Hillary, honestly. And I stand by this too. I mean, some people say, well, you're responsible for this. Like, okay, yeah, I accept that, but I'm not going to regret it. It's just like, I felt like I just couldn't, like, if I was to go back and do it all over again, I probably would have voted for Hillary.
That's what I was just about to ask you.
Yeah. If I was to go back, I probably would have voted for Hillary in retrospect. 2020, I voted for Joe Biden, but the first candidate I ever donated money to was actually Pete Buttigieg. I'm a big Pete Buttigieg fan, because he shares a lot of the same views that I have. Now, people said I am not a real independent and stuff like that because I have so many progressive views. But the thing is, though, I've given myself the title of pragmatic progressive because, you know, the thing I found out is that, like, there are people on the left, and we're going to talk about this too, where we have a tendency to kind of eat our own, basically. Like, if you don't toe the line right here, you're not a real Democrat. You're not a real leftist. You're not a real such and such. Okay, well, I'm going to call myself a pragmatic progressive that votes Democrat, because there are a lot of things I feel the Democratic Party does very, very well. And I can definitely talk about the fact that, like, the first 2 years of the Biden administration, some of the best legislation we ever seen, that this country's ever seen, got passed. Some of the best domestic spending that we've ever seen in recent history done. Now, I can also, like, the reason I call myself pragmatic is because I should be able to call out my own party when they are screwing up, which they have their own fair share of doing that. Now, people say, well, why don't you do that enough? It's like, well, I can. But the thing that I find most interesting is the fact that every single time the left is expected to call out their own, when the right does something wrong, it is dead silent. You don't hear a peep from the right. Very rarely will they call anybody out. The only time they call them out is when they speak out against the orange God emperor, essentially. If you don't stand toe to line with Donald Trump, then basically you're going to get burnt to the stake, essentially. That's the only time that I have a problem with things. And you know, I don't want to ramble too much, but the thing is like, I actually did a video. I don't know if you saw this video on YouTube, where after the election was over with, there was an increase of right-wing extremist people and religious nut jobs going to like colleges with signs that said women are property, right? It happened down at Texas State University. And then you had Nick Fuentes saying, your body, my choice forever. And of course, now he's found out that his actions have consequences. But the thing is that like I did a video about that. And I says, these guys that are doing this are not an anomaly. These guys are everywhere. There are millions of people like this across the country. So this is like not a new thing. But I had friends that I'm very, very close friends with that are very conservative, and they were trying to say I'm painting all conservatives in the same brush. No, you missed my entire point. But I don't want to talk about it too much because I feel like I'm going to ramble forever about it. So
I mean, that's a pretty good ramble, but I have a couple questions. Like, going back to the Hillary thing, like, what made you change your mind to think, hey, if I were to do it all over again, I'd be willing to vote Hillary?
Because she was right about Trump. She was 100% right about him. I mean, Trump was a wild card. I kind of look at Trump in 2016 as the Joker in the Dark Knight because the Republicans basically were so scared and so just thrown off by Obama that they turned to the first person they really couldn't understand. They turned to a guy that cannot be bought or negotiated with unless he's the guy that's setting all the terms and the boundaries, essentially. And right now, if you turn against Trump, you're pretty much going to get burned at the stake. Like I said, you're pretty much going to be like thrown under the MAGA bus if you turn out against Trump. I mean, look what happened to Liz Cheney. Look what happened to Adam Kinzinger. Look, and Mitt Romney decided I'm not going to run anymore because, you know, they don't like me whatsoever. I mean, the cult of MAGA is everywhere, especially the political sphere. But do I think that Hillary Clinton was a perfect politician? No, but there's no such thing as a perfect politician, not in the history of this country. But I just feel like a lot of the policies, like she said, if there's a good chance that like Trump will probably bring in Supreme Court justices to get a Roe v. Wade. That's exactly what happened. And Trump even brags about these things. I mean, she definitely was the most qualified because she served in all different levels of government, essentially. She served especially served in the as Secretary of State, which means she has that diplomatic experience. Now, were there some questionable things that happened? Absolutely. Like, I feel like the Arab Spring during her time with Obama was awful. I felt like the situation in Libya was poorly handled. I don't really blame her for Benghazi because even the families of Benghazi says, no, stop blaming her for this. Stop dragging out our families into the limelight kind of this. That was such a complicated situation. And they did investigation after investigation for 4 years. They had the biggest pit bull out there, Trey Gowdy, investigating this. I know because I watched these briefings. And they found nothing. They found Jack Diddley squat. But people are still talking about it because, like, this is what they're focused upon. So,
and that leads me directly into the next question. So when we talk about calling out our own versus the other side calling out their own, do you feel that in some ways the way we call out our own is more damaging than helpful in the long run?
It really depends, honestly, because after the election was over with, the left was just turning on itself unlike anything I'd ever seen. Like, everybody started blaming Biden because he didn't drop out soon enough. People are blaming Tim Walz because he wasn't going, people are saying Tim Walz was the worst possible running mate, which is bullshit. I felt that he was the best running mate because he's the most relatable, honestly. Like, look at all those progressive policies in Minnesota. These are issues that everybody agrees with. People said that Kamala Harris just was too corporatist, which I'm actually inclined to agree with about that. She could have stuck to the issues. And the thing is like, there are times like where the left just kind of rolls over and shows its belly. We're always on the defensive because when you see people like Pierce Morgan always talking about what? Trans issues, saying that this is the main focus of the campaign. She rarely talked about it, but they brought up something she said in 2019, and she says, I'm just going to follow the law, but they didn't agree with that too much. But the reason why I say the left tends to eat itself is because we just went on the attack. We're blaming each other. We're blaming like what we did and what we did not do. But the thing is like it even happened in my state of Michigan because we felt like, especially in the rural communities, that we were essentially ignored because the person that was the chair of the Michigan Democratic Party said, I'm going to worry about the urban communities because that's where the votes are at. Fair point. But you still need the rural vote. You need to keep the rural people involved and engaged in things like this. So I feel like sometimes we don't help each other out enough. But fortunately, though, I've actually been every week I've been taking part in if Letha, if you're interested in something like this, every weekend there is something called PDA, Progressive Democrats of America. It's a Zoom call that happens at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They have a lot of good people come on there and talk. It's on a Zoom call. Last week they had Congressman Ro Khanna and former Senator Nina Turner on there, and I got to listen to them speak in person. It was phenomenal. Like, they talked about some really good popular policies, and that's what we just need to get back to. What is it that makes us progressive? What are some progressive issues we need to focus upon? Healthcare for all, making sure that, there's good child care, making sure there's adequate, good, common sense gun legislation. We're not trying to take people's guns, but good God, all this violence that keeps on happening, and we're not doing a damn thing about it, essentially. Like, these are important issues, but yet we just kind of like seem to forget that. I mean, before I wrap this up, one of the things that I felt was really important that Kyle Kalinske talked about. Have you ever watched Kyle Kalinske on Secular Talk?
A little bit, yeah.
He really zeroed in on something that I didn't really consider. Why is it that she was so focused upon bringing on Dick Cheney? I thought that was a bad move on her part. I mean, Liz Cheney I can get. And I think the only way we could have capitalized on this is because Liz Cheney, who voted with Donald Trump 96% of his presidency, when she saw January 6th happen, she said, no, this is wrong. And Kamala Harris should have capitalized upon that. But bringing her dad involved, I'm sorry. Republicans nowadays don't like Dick Cheney. And I feel like a lot of people on the left is like, wow, why would you bring on Dick Cheney? I mean, I don't like Dick Cheney. I mean, I agree with him that he said that what happened on January 6th was terrible. But the thing is, though, he was a horrible vice president. I mean, what else can I say about that? I mean, just it was a bad move on Kamala's part. But I just feel like the left needs to do some self-reflection and let alone the fact that if you come across like another person that leans left, and if they don't agree with you, stop labeling them like right away. I mean, people think, oh my God, you're attacking. Just like, well, it's called being an adult in the room, because we have to show kind of a united front, essentially. I mean, that's what's most important right now. So anyway.
Well, thank you for the bit, Zephyr. Really appreciate that. So with the whole endorsement of Dick Cheney, do you think that was a bad look for the Democrat Party? And do you think that for Democrats, this caused us to look like we were more becoming what the Republican Party used to be and turned off voters? Or do you think at that point it was all against Donald Trump kind of situation?
It made it look like, because Dick Cheney is considered a warmonger and Donald Trump claims to be the president of peace, and optics is everything in politics. And I think that really did play against Kamala Harris in the long run, because you're bringing in Dick. I mean, like, if she would have just brought in Liz Cheney and just talked about the fact that we have to be united against Donald Trump, it probably could have played out more in her favor. But Dick Cheney, that was a really, in my opinion, that was a bad idea. So
they should have just ignored the endorsement, or actually actively spoke against the endorsement and said, we don't want your endorsement.
I would say not. Like, I just don't think they should have made such light. Like, I don't think they should have focused on it so much. But because, like, the right wing, they zeroed in on it completely. They used that to their advantage, I think. And so, like, I get why you would want to have the endorsement of Dick Cheney. But the thing is, though, it's like I said, I mean, if people paid attention to the political sphere, George Bush is not considered a popular president, even to today's Republicans. Like, and then especially Dick Cheney. And why? Because Donald Trump says, I don't like George Bush or Dick Cheney. They're just kind of like following the leader kind of deal. So they kind of should have paid attention to the political spectrum. Oh, did I freeze up?
You blacked out for a second. Oh, you're flickering.
Oh crap. Okay. How am I now? Am I good?
Yep.
Okay. So
that's interesting, because one of my main focuses has been that there was so much infighting on the left, and so many calls for introspection from the Democrat Party, where, as you said, the other side really doesn't do any introspection. They kept running the same exact lines. So why does one side need introspection and to learn from mistakes, and why does the other side basically get to carry on doing exactly what they were doing in the first place?
Because The reason why that is because no matter what we say about Donald Trump, it didn't matter. January 6th should have been like the end all be all. Like that should have been like, nope, he should never ever be president ever again. But the thing is, though, people still voted for Trump. The guy could pretty much say whatever. I mean, he's talking about changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He's talking about taking over Greenland. He's not ruled out military or economic, matters of doing so. He's wanting to take over the Panama Canal. This is a guy that said in his campaign that he's going to be the president of peace. He's definitely not sounding like the president. He can pretty much do whatever he wants to, and people are just going to keep doing it. So they're not going to do any introspection. That time for the Republican Party is over with. The only thing we can do is just hold them accountable and just expose them for what they are. Because throughout the election cycle, the Republican for the past few years have done a very good job about one thing, the culture war. They zero in on that. They focus so much on the culture war issues, things that are not even that important. Like they focus about Leah Thomas swimmers. They're saying that all trans women are coming to take over women's sports. There's 500,000 college athletes right now. There's like less than 10 trans women athletes out there. And they're not even counting the fact that there are trans men out there competing as well. Nobody cares about that, though. It's just trans women they're zeroing in on. They're zeroing in on the trans women coming into the bathrooms. They care so much about this stuff. And they're saying these people are coming to invade your children's spaces, essentially. They're using the culture war stuff, and we're always having to play defense on that part. We could talk about the economy. We could talk about jobs. We could talk about these things. But they talk about the things that scare people the most, and they flood the zone with all this information. That is what they zero in on. And I don't like the only way we could do that is just like by flooding the zone ourselves with information and just completely overwhelming it. But the problem is, though, is that like when you got people like Pierce Morgan that undermine everything that the left says, it's hard to get a word edgewise when he's playing favorites to the right wing people, essentially.
Okay, so right now we're getting to that point where we, for the entire election cycle, people that did not like Donald Trump were saying, hey, when he gets into office, he's going to do this, he's going to do this, he's going to do this. And when it's coming down to things, like as we're getting from the news, like I can't confirm or deny anything that's going to happen, but he seems to have flip-flopped. Like one of the main things that's been flip-flop on is the whole issue with the H-1B visas. So do you think that our posturing, or most Democrat posturing, or anybody else is speaking out against Trump and saying he's going to do this, if he doesn't do these things, it sets an unfair bar? And do you think that will damage the credibility of anybody that's speaking out against this in the future?
Are you talking about speaking out against Trump?
Yeah, like if you're going to say, oh, he's going to enact Project 2025, if he doesn't, what does that do for credibility?
So I think we focused a lot on Project 2025, right? Which I thought we were right to, because he's talking about bringing in one of the guys to help write Project 2025. I mean, there are people that he's bringing in that helped write the legislation, so it only makes sense. But I think we needed to focus more on like the fact of he said that he was also going to drop grocery prices. He's now come back and said, well, looks like we're not going to be able to drop grocery prices. When they're up, they stay up. He said that he was going to end the war in Ukraine and Russia within 24 hours should he win the nomination. He didn't do that either. I mean, the thing is, it's like we said this throughout the election cycle and nobody listened. And now when we say it again, it's like, well, you didn't actually think he was going to do that, did you? Well, yeah, we knew this. That's why we said it. It's just like the more you tell them, the more they seem to be in denial. They seem to say, oh, well, that's not what he said, but, you just hate America. I mean, that's what they go to. They don't really care about facts. They don't care about evidence. They don't do any research. Whatever Trump says, they're going to go along with it. It's sort of like the, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain right there. That's what they're going to do. They're going to follow whatever Trump says. And to the people that try to hold him accountable, if you're a Republican, once again, you're going to get denounced by the rest of the Republican Party, essentially. I mean, they're even talking about, Elon Musk is even talking about how if you don't confirm any of his appointees, people that are going to come in his cabinet positions, we're going to make sure you get primaried. Elon Musk is the wealthiest man in the entire world, which means he's got to get the influence. I mean, we talked about it in one of your panels where Elon Musk was basically buying people's votes, essentially. And I was like, why is everybody not talking about this more often, but it didn't get answered essentially.
Okay, so like
Mhm.
pretty much one of the things I heard
Mhm.
was that if he doesn't make good on the horrible things that we expect from him, then people won't be as disappointed. People won't have a problem with his presidency and may look on it favorably. Do you think that's a possibility?
So like us, like just being like, calling out Trump.
I'm hearing this from people like Luke Beasley,
Mhm.
David Packman. Like, if he doesn't screw up as hard as we expect him to, then we'll
Mhm.
probably be all right with his presidency. Like, how do you think about that idea?
It's possible. Like, but the thing is, though, we know how Trump is going to be because we've already seen him as president. Last time he had guardrails. This time he's not going to have any guardrails. This time I think he's going to be even worse this time around, honestly. I mean, if, and I'll put it like this, okay? If Trump becomes like the greatest president of the entire world and makes us look stupid, guess what? We just got to eat humble pie. That's all there is to it. But he's not going to do that, though. He's not going to be a great president. He's going to be worse than he was last time. But I did look in the chat section. I have to address something real quick. So Nair says Biden blocked drilling in the ocean that would help reduce price. You do realize that we are drilling more at any point in the history of the country, in the history of our country. We have been drilling more for the past year than at any point in history. We are still the net exporter across the world. So if you're telling me that drilling more drops gas prices, why have we dropped gas prices? Go ahead and explain it to me. Go ahead. So,
Well,
but anyway, I had to address
not to
that.
sit and fight with chat. So, like the
I
idea
got you.
that if he doesn't become a full dictator, our
Mhm.
credibility is in the toilet in general. And I think we wasted a lot of energy during the
Mhm.
election cycle, basically saying that this dude's going to be a dictator. And I think that burned out a lot of people because you have a 24-hour news cycle going on.
Mhm.
People tuning in, hearing the talking heads do what they do. And I think a lot of people were checked out by the time we got there. But I don't want to say that we didn't waste a lot of capital on
Mhm.
this. So what do you think the outcome of that is going to be going forward?
Whatever Trump does right, he's going to take a victory lap, and then his news cycles are going to flood it and sing his praise. But anytime he does something wrong, he's just going to blame everybody else and say it's not his fault. It's going to be a wash, rinse, repeat cycle. I mean, he's already doing it essentially. He's talking about like how he won all of his cases, which he didn't. Like especially the Hushmany trial. He says he won that case. He didn't. He said he won the case against E. Jean Carroll. And I understand what you're trying to ask essentially, but it's just like every little thing that Trump does that's good, he's going to take a victory lap. It doesn't matter how small or how big it is. And again, whenever he screws up, he's never going to take responsibility for it. That's not his style. That's not who he is. He blames other people for it. He'll say it's the deep state. He'll say it's George Soros. He'll say Barack Obama is working behind the scenes with the rest of the puppets out there, and they're trying to steal our sources and give it to the migrants that are coming into. Like he's going to make up some crazy story, and people are going to buy into it and they're going to believe it. So, but do I think he's going to be a crazy dictator? Well, that remains to be seen. I just think he's just going to continue to be erratic, and I think we're just going to look even worse because the rest of the world is already saying, "Wow, you guys really reelected this guy? Really?" Like our allies are like, "Wow, this is bad."
So how much do you think is actually going to get done? Like when it comes down to the immigration policies, all these other things, like how much do you think is really going to happen?
Well, I'm terrible about predicting things because I thought that the election was going to turn a lot better. I'm terrible at predicting even my favorite football team wins. But if I was to be a betting man, I'm willing to bet that they're going to start off with this mass deportation, right? And it's going to look good optics wise. And they're probably going to do it for a little bit and they're probably going to back off of it. They're going to talk about building the big, beautiful wall. But I think they're just going to do whatever. Like, here's the thing that I think is probably going to happen, though. The person that I really want to focus upon as well is Elon Musk, right? Because some of the legislation that Joe Biden passed is like the Chips and Science Act, right? Great legislation. Why is the Chips and Science Act so important? Because you're going to build semiconductor factories here in the United States to keep us competitive with China. Because a lot of the semiconductor plants that chips we get are imported from Taiwan, essentially. And we want to make sure we stay competitive against China, right? Guess who's going to be walking in? And what do we use semiconductors for? Smartphones. We use them for our battery powered cars. We use them for pretty much everything that, like for our computers and whatnot. And guess who's now going to be walking into that job right now? Elon Musk. I have a feeling that he helped Donald Trump to maybe get a little piece of the pie. That's probably why they also want Greenland. Why? Because of rare earth minerals over there. That's what they're talking about. They're thinking dollar signs essentially. I think that he's going to do whatever he wants to, and I think like Trump is probably going to do a lot more golfing than he did last time. And he's just going to let everybody else just kind of like run the show. He's just going to let everybody else run wild because he thinks that's important. But he's going to take all the credit for when things go great. But when things start to go south, oh, well, it's not my fault. I barely knew this person, especially when I know that he's going to start firing people because he had the highest turnover rate of any president in recent history. Like 95% of his A team was gone by the time he left office. He's going to start firing people again. He's like, this person was not my decision. I barely knew this person. I don't know why people told me, but he was not my first pick. He did that all the time. So.
That's an interesting way to think about it. So like you brought up the whole Greenland and I'm going to just go ahead and lead in with Canada and everything else he wants to talk about taking over. Like, how realistic do you think any of this is, or you think it's just crazy talk?
It's crazy talk. I mean, Don Jr. was just in Greenland and he says, oh, they love us there. There was like 11 people in the photo. Like I counted. There was like 11 people, not including him, in the photo. It's like, I'm sorry. In a population of like 500,000 plus people, I'm sorry, that's not general consensus. Denmark has already said, no, it's not for sale. It's not going to happen. And listen, if he's talking about he's worried about the national security, well, okay, fine. But why is it that you guys are talking about rare earth minerals then? Why are you guys focused on these things? I mean, why is he talking about like invading? I thought he was the president of peace. I thought he didn't want any more wars. I thought he was tired of war. Even though now he's actually said, hey, we're going to keep funding Ukraine, even though he said he wasn't going to take a side on that. He just wants the war to end. I mean, it's all bluster, essentially. The things that I think that he is going to do is he's going to follow up on his, tax cuts for the wealthy like he did before, which actually hurts us, the average American, because in the 2017 tax cuts that helped out the super wealthy, it didn't actually help us out. Like I pay more in taxes because of that, because of the offset cost essentially. So that's one thing he's definitely going to do. I also think that I have no doubt that if, God forbid, Kash Patel becomes the FBI director, he's going to, do as he says. He's going to start going after people the same way that, Trump feels like he was targeted and attacked, basically, which also isn't true. Like, I think that he is going to go on somewhat of a revenge tour. How big it goes, that's anybody's guess. The guy has a terrible track record when it comes to the court cases. A very, very terrible. I mean, the guy has been in court 4,000 times. He's got more court cases than the entire franchise of movies and television shows. Like, I swear to God, that's the real number right there. It's over 4,000 court cases. So
that's really interesting. Like you're getting into different grounds of things that I was definitely interested in asking about.
Yeah.
The appointments that are in place, how many of those do you think will actually go through? Like we have strong fear of people like RFK, people like Kash Patel. So like all this, like the main crux of the conversation is like wondering exactly how much should we actually be speaking about when it comes down to the incoming administration, and how much are we actually wasting energy and treading water with only to eventually take on water.
Yep. Okay, so if we're going to talk about like some of the appointment picks, right? I've already talked about Kash Patel. Kash Patel has never worked in the FBI. From what I understand, he actually worked as a defense attorney for like drug cartels or stuff like that. I think that's what his job was. So the guy's got brains. He's not an idiot. But I just wonder, but he is very much a partisan hack. He is only doing it because Trump asked him to, because he's a loyalist. That's his only job. Trump made it abundantly clear he's only going to pick people that are loyal, not people that are most qualified, that are loyal. That's the main thing that he's focusing upon. RFK Jr. being the health human services guy is a joke. I mean, sure, the guy is physically fit. That doesn't mean a thing. The guy's not a doctor. He's never been a virologist. He's very contradictory. He likes to say, oh, well, these vaccines, they cause autism. There's no proof to that whatsoever. Every doctor that's trying to say that is true has been debunked thoroughly and has been denounced by the medical community, let alone the fact that he likes to exploit and utilize other people's pain and suffering. Like, he wrote a book about like vaccines, and without the authorization of the families, he used the photo of a child that didn't even die because he was vaccinated. He was unvaccinated. It was a complete separate issue. It's because he doesn't care. Let alone the fact that the guy is just completely just off the rails. Like he can't stay on topic. Like he says, if I see enough evidence to change my mind on something, I will change my mind. Well, he's been shown the evidence that vaccines don't cause autism, and he's still pushing this bullshit narrative. It's bad. This is dangerous. Like, there's a reason as to why we get vaccinated, because things like polio, we need to keep polio away. We don't want it coming back. Measles, all these other vaccines. I don't want to, start getting into stuff like that. Pete Hegseth is a real problem. I mean, people look at Pete Hegseth as some kind of a war hero. He's not, though. Okay. Yes, he served his country. But the thing is, his job was a major. Okay. Major is a field grade officer at the beginning level of a field grade officer. Okay. It's not like some prestigious position. You're basically working in the S shop for the battalion commander. You work directly for the battalion commander. That's about it, though. From what I understand, he has very, very little experience of leading large groups of people into combat. From what I understand, apparently he has a real bad alcoholism problem. And he says, oh, if I become Secretary of Defense, I'll quit drinking. That should be an automatic red flag for everybody. The guy is known to be completely erratic. He is also known to just have a really hot temper. The fact the guy's got the moral compass that is completely shattered completely. I mean, but this seems to be like the thing. Everyone's like, oh, well, we'll look past like his, like his shortcomings. Tulsi Gabbard, I'm a little on the fence about Tulsi Gabbard because
really,
I have no proof that she is a Russian agent, but I am very suspicious of her because every chance she has to denounce the actual dictators of the world, she's very hush-hush about it. She doesn't really say too much about it. Instead, she's like pushing a lot of propaganda. And it's kind of like what Joe Walsh said. At worst, she's just a Russian cheerleader. That's it. And when people say, oh, well, she's a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, there's no way in hell she could ever be a Russian asset. Listen, when I was in the Army, all my 20 years, there's certain training you take. It's called insider attack training, basically. Because there was a guy that was in the FBI that was a Russian asset, right? And they actually sent the FBI, like they actually put a APB out on a possible Russian mole. That's who they were talking about. And he got put in charge of the investigation. So, and he was basically tossing out all these little red herrings out there to get people to kind of deviate and track down the wrong people. And he did this for years until they finally caught on and realized he was it. Now, I'm not saying that's what Tulsi Gabbard is, but that's the only alarm bells that's kind of going off in my head right now. I was like, holy crap, this could very well be a possibility. And again, this is just allegedly. I'm not saying she's that, but this is just the only thing I can't get out of my head. Linda McMahon as the Department of Education. They are trying to get rid of the Department of Education. And did we do a panel about that? Or was that on? No, that was on a different panel, I think. They're trying to get rid of the Department of Education. That's a problem because the Department of Education is there just to make sure that certain schools get funding, especially like for special needs programs and whatnot, to make sure that certain programs are still funded. That's its main purpose. But people are like saying that the Department of Education is getting too involved in schools and curriculums. Listen, all your curriculums are already at the state level, all right? So I don't know what you're talking about, but Linda McMahon has like has no experience whatsoever in education. I mean, I think a Department of Agriculture or Interior is going to go to Kelly Loeffler, another billionaire. Like there's 9 billionaires that are going to be in this administration, but Donald Trump can relate to the common guy. I don't get it. Anyway, I'm rambling too long, so.
No, not at all. I mean, that's kind of the point of this. I want you to get some of your thoughts out there so that when we have the open, we can kind of dissect some of these things because I know people are going to have differing opinions when it comes down to these things. And I would like more of us to, like, as we have panelists on, sometimes people don't get to have their thoughts expressed and you can't really work through the entire idea. So like hitting on each of these things is definitely a good thing. To speak to the whole Russian agent portion of our story, we had multiple scandals of people being paid off by Russian media groups, and that didn't seem to get a lot of airplay. So I wonder, even if it were the case that she were a Russian agent or paid for by Russians, like, would it even make a difference at this point?
You would think it would, but obviously it doesn't, because when the whole Russia collusion investigation went on, there was a lot of witnesses that were not allowed to testify, essentially, for some of those cases. And the thing is like, when they did finish up the investigation, he was very, very clear that this in no way, shape, or form exonerates Donald Trump. He was very, very clear about that in the final report. But Trump said, "Oh, I was exonerated." But they say, "Oh, this was just a witch hunt. Nobody got prosecuted." Yeah, people did get prosecuted, actually, like Paul Manafort, from what I understand, and Mike Flynn. He was prosecuted for lying to the FBI. But then, here comes Mr. Barr comes in and then basically finds a way to kind of circumnavigate and try to get him out of it. Basically, that's what happens. Even though Mike Flynn said under penalty of perjury, not once, but twice, to a judge, "Yes, I did lie to the FBI. No, I'm not being coerced to do this. No, I'm not." But now he's saying, "Oh, no, I'm innocent now." It's because he says one thing in a courtroom because he knows that if he lies, he's going to be found liable for perjury, essentially. Like, he'll get charged with perjury. So it's things like this. Like, people were found to be in cahoots with the Russian government. And, they did investigations upon this, but because there was so much obstruction involved in this case that nothing else became of it. So it kind of just fell apart. So now whenever you talk about Russia, they just go, "Oh, Russia, Russia, Russia." That was completely debunked across the board. And you could drop link after link after link, and people are like, "Nope, nope, sorry, nope, nope, nope. It's all debunked. It's all bullshit." It's like, okay, fine. But you expect me to read an article from like 16 years ago from one person from a different source that just happened to be a bad informant or whatnot. You want me to believe that? "Oh, well, it's not mainstream media outlets." It's like, well, I didn't drop mainstream media outlets either. I mean, I don't really pay attention to the mainstream media anymore anyway, so.
And that's exactly what I was getting at with the whole, if these things don't come to pass, or if what we said was the case doesn't show to be emphatically true, everything is thrown out of the window. So in what way do you think in the future we can not waste our political capital in conversations with other people, to not allow for, "Oh, if you mention Russia, I don't want to hear it. If you mention vaccines, I don't want to hear it. If you mention this, because what you guys said was not the reality. We were told this and we're sold a false bill of goods."
I would suggest start off with a conversation that nobody else is talking about and find out like what they agree and disagree on. And then it's like kind of bring them in to your side, essentially, because, in areas like in rural Michigan, there's like one issue that pretty much like we are all tied to, right? That like it's an issue that people don't talk about enough, and that's healthcare, right? And the way to get to people is like, okay, so how's your access to healthcare around here? Well, the nearest ER is 45 minutes away. You got to get a MMR, a mobile response unit, and it's going to take you about 20 minutes for me to get picked up. It's going to take me about another hour to get to the emergency room. This is troubling because what if I am suffering from a really bad injury? Now, it's things like this. You got to kind of like bring people into your side of the fence, right? And try to find issues that kind of like bring you all together, because you don't hear the Republicans talking about plans for healthcare because they don't have plans for healthcare. They've been trying to get rid of Obamacare since 2011, and they still don't have a plan for healthcare. I mean, Trump doesn't have a plan for healthcare. So you got to try to find a way to get people on your side by talking about issues that is going to affect them as well. And, just like try to sweeten the pot a little bit. Maybe then it's like, well, listen, you sound like you obviously do your research about this, because Clint St. Mosley, who ran in the 9th Congressional District, said he had a lot of people that vote Republican that says, "Hey, man, if you weren't a Democrat, I'd probably vote for you." But it's just because of like the fact he's a Democrat, they didn't vote for him. But they say you make a lot of sense. You do your research on these issues. And that's really, really important. I feel like people need to do more. You just don't read, because Americans have the attention span of goldfish. If it's not a headline, we're not going to, like, if it's just a headline, we make our determination based upon that, and then we just go on from there. Some people might read some extra lines, and then their next door neighbor's brother will say, "Hey, I heard about this. You hear about that?" Yeah, what do you hear about that? And they might have done more research, like, "Oh, well, I read that too. So, yeah, I get that." It's just because we read the headlines, but we don't do any additional research after that. I mean, even if like CNN put something out, I check additional sources, because I don't trust CNN. I don't trust MSNBC. I trust like sources that back that up. I mean, it's kind of like you're doing a research for a paper. You don't just go to Wikipedia. You got to go to the sources in the footnotes, essentially. What is accurate to this?
Oh, you just hit on something that I find to be very interesting. So, did you see that the Meta is getting rid of their fact checking?
Oh yeah, yeah. I know why he's doing it too. He's scared.
And I think in the instance that this happens, or it is going to happen, that we're now in a time where we need more media literacy than we ever have before. And we're going to need more critical thinking skills than we ever had before.
Mhm.
So, what should be done to get people to have more media literacy?
Yeah. Every time you go on social media, right? If you see a story that's shared by your friend that's bullshit, you got to come up with a source and a few sources to counter that essentially. And you got to flood the zone. Like you got to completely flood that zone because that's what the right does. They will find a bullshit story and they will flood it with information to the point where you have no chance of catching up to it. And you'll hear people like when you have a conversation and they like to gush gallop, because they know it's going to throw you off balance and you're not going to be able to recover. You're not going to be able to address every single point. You got to do the same thing, but you got to be correct on your information because if you're not, the second that you screw one thing up, oh well, your argument completely goes out the window. Well, you can't just like flood the zone with, you got to know the material too. Like I said, healthcare. You got to understand, why is healthcare so important? Why is it so important for rural communities? Why is it that the commute time is so long? Why is the average commute time so long in certain rural areas? What can we do to fix that? You have to be well aware of these issues. And like it said, like Nilka Mike, it's just, instead of be first, be accurate, like they did in the show Newsroom. Instead of focus on like what is first, because that's what the mainstream media outlet pushes out. Because like we saw what just happened with the New Orleans attack and the Las Vegas attack. People said this was an attack because of open borders. Wasn't open borders. They said that it was a truck that was like driving in and out of El Paso across the border. That's not the case. They said that this guy was a migrant. He's not a migrant. He was an American-born citizen. This is our problem. We are so consumed by this idea that like, oh my God, this is what's happening. And I've immediately got to say this on social media. This is why I usually wait, because I've made this mistake many, many, many times, like throughout Trump's presidency, throughout Obama's presidency. Until I get more information, I don't put a damn thing out. At least I try not to. But I've had to eat crow a few times. But and to the people that say, "Oh well, I'm still correct," and they just won't listen, well, there's nothing you can do about that then. But it's not their mind you have to change. Maybe somebody in their audience, somebody in their atmosphere is like, you know what, that guy just made a good point. That's interesting. It's like, why is it that you can't answer that person's question? It's like, oh, that person's just a communist. Then you can actually show that, hey, listen, looks like I've got the information on my side. Essentially, it's kind of how you do it, really.
So, I think on my end of it that confirmation bias plays a really strong hand in disinformation. So when you find something that confirms what you already believed in the first place, you're going to be more willing to accept that and not do further research when it comes down to that topic. So
Mhm.
like when it was basically vaccines, people will find any influencer or any source that's saying the things you don't like about vaccines or things you're worried about. Where at the
Mhm.
same time, even if you find that information that agrees with whatever your mindset already was, it may not be factual information at all.
Mhm.
So, how do you combat that specifically?
Well, I asked them for their burden of proof. Like, okay, where's your proof on this matter? And if they drop me a link, I will see who wrote it and I will see like what the paper says. It's like, well, that doesn't really say anything, honestly. That just was like, okay, first things first, this person is a known anti-vaxxer. This person has a history of like being anti-vaxxer, essentially. It says, let me show you a paper that is like a peer-reviewed study done by people, because peer-reviewed studies are important. Because these are trial tests done. This person over here doesn't have a degree in in virology or whatever. They're just a blogger. And like you have to undermine their argument in any way that you can and show it's like, nope, this argument is incorrect. And you have to show them how. And again, you just have to flood that zone. You have to show why they're incorrect. You can't just call them an idiot. I call people idiots all the time, and I probably shouldn't do that, but it's just because I get frustrated. But it's just, you have to show them why they're wrong, and you have to do it in a way that makes sense. Because for people that don't know, they actually did a study. 54% of Americans have the reading level of a sixth grader. And listen, I'm not trying to call people stupid, but that's a detriment on the education system as a whole. 54% of Americans have a sixth grade reading level. That's bad. But yet people can like recite what happens on TikTok or like, their favorite football team. But listen, I'm on TikTok too. I love watching football. But the thing is though, I have other priorities. Like if I'm going to talk about an issue, I need to understand what it means. And if I don't know, I ask people. Um, if I don't know like something like as far as geopolitics, right? I have a person I can go talk to, an expert in geopolitics, and he'll get back to me when he can and answer those questions for me because I know he's going to tell me, good information. And he says, listen, I can even send you those sources to back it up, essentially. That's the way you win the information war. And sometimes you have to break it down into bullet points because, again, we have really short attention spans. I've been an instructor before. If you can't keep people engaged in the first 5 minutes, you're not going to be able to keep them engaged for an hour. So you have to find a way to keep people engaged. How does Trump keep people engaged? He puts bullet points that scares people and gets people talking. We have to do the same thing. We just find a way to like articulate and succinctly make it a point that gets people on our side, essentially. So, yep.
So do you think some of that, like, because I think a lot of us were using similar tactics, and at the end of the day, when the feeling came out of how people felt about what Democrat messaging was, is that it was pretentious, it was over people's heads, like it was smug. Especially that was one of the main critiques was smug leftists looking down on conservatives. So do you still think that that would be the best way to handle things?
Well, that's what I'm saying is like you got to break it down in a way that like some people can, in a format they could comprehend, because I know that, and listen, I'm not the smartest guy in the book whatsoever. Okay. I'm kind of a moron at times. I have no problem admitting that, but I admit that. But I know there's people out there, they may not know what this issue means. So it's my job. If I'm going to tell somebody, I have to do it in a format they can comprehend. And, like a bullet point. And then if they ask questions about that, then I can kind of go into detail. I got to get their attention. You got to maintain their attention. And the thing is like, I wish I could say, I don't want to say things that like, to get people scared, because that shouldn't be our point. Because you start scaring people, that's when shit starts going a little bit sideways, honestly. So I don't know if that's really answering your question, honestly, because like that's how the right wing has been doing it. They get people talking about issues, about the culture war issues, but they won't mention these other issues because it's kind of like squirrel, let's not talk about this. Let's get your attention on this over here. Oh my God, this migrant over here just committed an assault, but let's not talk about the fact that another school shooting just happened over here. Let's not talk about that. We'll just offer thoughts and prayers here, but we need to do something over here. That's what they're doing over there. They're focused on that issue because that gets people talking.
Okay, well, I think we covered some pretty decent ground. We're going to
Sure.
get ready to go to the semi-open panel portion of the
Sure.
conversation. Is there anything you wanted to get across, or any other thoughts that you wanted to lay out?
No, I mean, that's about it. I mean, I could talk for hours on issues like this. But like I said, I mean, I don't want to seem like I'm just lecturing and preaching right now. I mean, just it's easier for me to say it when I again, I don't stream as often as I do, and I don't have these conversations nearly enough, and I would like to, because like maybe that's what'll just like get people talking me off more often. But just I don't know. I'm willing to talk to anybody on these issues, and like if they have any questions or concerns, I mean, I'll answer it best I can. I don't have all the answers though, so
Yeah, I just really missed having conversations, and that's why I've decided on the
sure,
format change, because it allows me to get to know my panelists a bit better. It allows the audience to get to know what people's views are better, and it allows us to like lay down lines of what we think on things, and that may open
yep,
up avenues in the future for more
sure.
conversations or better talks. So I think this was good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
So I'm going to move us to the open room
Sure.
momentarily. Do, do, do. Let me change this up.
Okay.
cameras on. All right.
All right.
And we are in open. So if anybody would like to join the conversation, has any thoughts, you are more than welcome to come through and chop it up with us. In the meantime, one of my main problems has been since the election that we're too busy trying to say where we failed versus looking forward to what we can do to staunch the situation going forward. Welcome, Ancom. And I think that's going to be deleterious in the long run to anything that Democrats want to get forward.
Sure. And I think Kyle Kalinske made a great point. If we want to have a good, solid presidential candidate in 2028, his idea was Jon Stewart. And I think he's got a great point because Jon Stewart, it's not just because he's a celebrity, but it's because he has no problem holding both sides accountable. He's done great things for first responders. He's done great things for veterans, and he has no problem using his platform to do good things. And the guy is like, people listen to him, and he's very smart. He asks all the right questions. He has no problem admitting when he doesn't know something. And the thing is, like, I've seen him mop the floor with people in debates. Like, I still remember when he mopped the floor with Tucker Carlson and made him look like such a fool, but that's not hard to do. But it's just, since then, Tucker Carlson stopped wearing bow ties after that, actually. So, I mean, it's things like that. Like, we need somebody that's, like, strong. And we're not going to get anywhere because, like, if we saw what happened in the Oversight Committee, instead of picking AOC, Nancy Pelosi stepped in and said, oh, no, let's get Mr. Connors in there. The guy is 71 years old, and he's got cancer in the esophagus. That's a problem. And listen, I'm not hating on the guy because he's 71 years old, but it's because he's got a medical condition that he needs to get looked at. He needs to prioritize himself. AOC's got a larger following. People are drawn to AOC. I mean, do people forget that in the election cycle, she had people that said, listen, I voted for you, but I voted for Trump too. She's like, what? How does that work? It's like, well, because like I believe that you're both pro-worker. Well, she's pro-worker. He is not. But anyway, I'm talking way too much again. So,
and welcome X-Fister and Ancom to the conversation, by all means. If you guys are speaking, can't hear you.
That would be because I was accidentally on mute.
There we go.
So yeah, I personally don't see Stewart as a great option. Although what you say, you know, he holds people accountable. Sometimes he does. A lot of times, though, in interviews where he should be holding people accountable, he just lets like some of the most egregious shit slide. When I say egregious shit, I mean like, you know, they'll say something that needs serious pushback and he just completely lets it go. Now, maybe that's got to do with the fact that, you know, he's in showbiz and, you know, has certain constraints related to popularity or, you know, getting those people back on. But, you know, I think that if we're going to take his readiness to hold people accountable as a statement of his, you know, his readiness to be a political figure, I think that's a bit overstated. As far as who I think would be better, unfortunately, at this point in time, I don't have better candidates. I'm not really seeing people in the political field that are, you know, that I think are ready to kind of take that level of involvement and actually hold people accountable. I do like seeing you know, the various you know, various people in various positions hold people accountable. You know, the various videos you see of people in Congress during you know, during hearings taking, you know, the people they've called to task for whatever it happens to be, and there are certainly no shortage of them. You know, that's the kind of fervor we need. Katie Porter was a great one. Unfortunately, she decided to give up her congressional seat to run for Senate and then got beat by, I want to say, Adam Schiff.
that's
Although
correct.
I may have, yeah, okay. But you know, hopefully she'll step back into the ring because I thought that she, you know, she was representing a fairly, you know, right leaning district, being from Orange County, and was one of the, at least of the clips that I saw, mind you, and I won't say that she was always great, but of the clips that I saw, she was very good at taking people to task and holding them to account for the shit that they would do.
She brings props. She
Yes,
brings props, and she's so good at that.
She brings props and she brings receipts, right? She goes into it knowing what the fuck she's talking about, and she does not let people get away with bullshit. And that is a great thing to see in Congress. Whether or not that holds up in the presidency, being a very different sort of job, I don't know. I certainly don't see any leaders in the Democratic Party that I would, particularly like to see taking the step toward the presidency. I think that Tim Walz and I want to say Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Well, yeah, both of them seem like they would manage to do well in that position, but electorally, I don't know if they're feasible on the greater national stage. However, what I think the Democrats need is someone who fires up the party on, like, first of all, they need to stop trying to court the right, because that's not going to happen. If you look at the election, the popular vote numbers between 2020 and 2024, Trump's voter base effectively didn't change. It was within a percentage point, I think. I haven't run the numbers, but I remember looking at the raw numbers. They were incredibly close. Meanwhile, Kamala got about 6 million fewer votes than Biden did. All those maps that you saw like the one with the county maps that had the arrows that pointed left or right, and they were red or blue, showing the change. I think those are really misleading, because Republicans didn't turn out more. People who voted for Democrats turned out less. And that's the key point that I think a lot of people missed. A lot of analyses missed, because they're going on what was there, not what was missing. So
I'd say that's...
I think ultimately you're looking for people who are going to fire up the base, get more people out, get the confidence of the center left and the left somehow. And I think that's a really hard thing to do, because the center left and the left are focused on generally not different issues exactly, but they focus more heavily on different things. And I think Kamala went too much for the center left and didn't give those farther left enough reason to actually, cast a vote for her, hence the lower numbers. So whoever comes up next for the Democrats needs to be able to take the entirety of the base and stop trying to get the right, which, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm just repeating myself here, they're not doing. They're not successful at doing. All of the griping and groaning about what Kamala should have done, coming from, the mainstream Democrats, they kept talking about, she needs to stop focusing on niche issues like trans rights and shit. I'm like, she barely talked about trans people.
Exactly.
Yeah, she didn't talk about it.
She did exactly what all of these talking heads are saying she should have done. Like, no, that's exactly what she did.
Yep.
And it didn't work.
And
you people are now looking at the failure of your policy proposals and say, oh, well, we need to do those exact same policy proposals, as if that's not what she did. Like, the level of psychopathy involved in the suggestions people are making is truly mind-boggling. Like, when did the Democrats become the ones who deny the basic facts of reality? Looking at, sorry, I realize I'm rambling. It's
a little frustrating, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at. So when we talk about holding our own accountable and things like that, I don't think we take into account the level of morale and confidence, as you said, that it's going to give to the voters. So when we're going after people for whatever it was that they were saying she did or did not do, is this actually harming the grounds for politics in the Democrat Party? And does that not cause certain people in the parties to feel like they're being left out?
But I look at it like this too, because and like listen, X-Raw, I'll let you talk in a second. I'm sorry, I don't want to like override you and stuff. The thing is, like, Joe Walsh made a very good point on pushing the limits. That's a show on YouTube. He said, had Joe Biden and Kamala Harris been more honest about issues that people were focused upon, like the economy and the border, stuff like that, and not try to say everything was just like hunky dory, because like he brought up the fact that during the time of the Great Depression, FDR had every week had something called fireside chats. And basically what he says, listen, things are going to be tough. They're going to continue to be tough, but this is the plan we've got going forward, essentially. This is the legislation that we've got pushing forward, essentially. I do think that had they done stuff like that, I think it could have done more, and it could have benefited more, essentially. Because being honest with the American people, even though I can't say like, because the next guy is not going to be honest whatsoever. He's just going to, sell headlines. But I do think like because we look at it right now, Biden did say, oh, well, the economy is just swimming. You could say, listen, these things are good. These things are bad. If you could differentiate the two and kind of keep it to bullet points, then you're fine. You're probably going to do a lot better. And I spoke with a lot of Democrats, and they said, yeah, that's exactly right. Like we tried our best to say, hey, listen, maybe you shouldn't say everything's hunky dory when we clearly know it's not hunky dory. It's like, but you got to explain why it's not hunky dory, and just say this is the good part, this is the bad part, essentially. So anyway, Extra, what you got, me?
I think we're still just pushing too far to the center right, or the pushing too far to the center, not pushing too far to the left, not pushing
Mhm.
too far enough to the left. I think that's a little bit of a distraction from a bunch of not no win issues.
Mhm.
In this situation where we did have a large amount of inflation, right? Uh,
Mhm.
the eggs did cost more, and we keep on trying to apply causation to all these things of like they appeal too much to the center, they appeal too much to the left, or or they didn't do it enough. And what's much more explainable is that it's very easy to message against these things. Like I think I've talked with Lethy about this. Like, just look at the price of your eggs.
Mhm.
You can give as many detailed paragraph answers about what the situation is and how it's actually we're doing better than the rest of the world. But all they have to do is hear that right wing talking point of look at the price of the eggs, and they're like, yeah, but my eggs do cost more. And it was just I think it was really a no win situation. Like the Gaza situation was a no win situation. Um, the the inflation was a no win situation.
Mhm.
And then you're just battling messaging, and a lot
Messaging,
of the
yes.
message a lot of the messages for the right were much easier. Some of them were just complete straight out lies, and some of them were um, very simple messages where they're just like, "Oh, they're battling inflation and economy. Look at your eggs," and they have that simple answer that anyone can just go to and be like, "Yeah, you know what? My eggs do cost more. Gas
Yeah.
prices are up." And I do think we kind of stretch it too much. Like um, Ankang, you did a little bit what you were saying there, that appealing too much to the right cost us, or you're kind of doing the same thing that others were doing, but on the other side.
So I pretty much got into a similar issue. When people would talk about the inflation, I would say, well, inflation is up all around the world. Everywhere that got touched by COVID, you saw some level of inflation. And out of all the countries that dealt with COVID, our recovery was better than any other country. This way of tackling it is seen as being smug or overly intellectual. So
Yeah,
how
but
do
what
Well,
you
about the price of my
reframe?
egg?
the problem I see there is you are saying our recovery was better than everyone else's. Okay, that's fine, but better than everyone else does not equal good. our recovery has not been good. It's just been the least bad, which is not that's not a way of saying it that people tend to respond to, because they don't know how everyone else is doing. The only thing they know and the only thing they care about is how they are doing and how the people around them are doing. So saying that you're doing better than all the other people, well, we're America, of course we are. Like, they just kind of expect that naturally, because that's how the American ethos tends to be. What people wanted and what Trump delivered in my opinion, the most inept way possible was, they wanted to see action in whatever form that took. Trump is very good at appearing to have action in the works. Doesn't actually do it, but people don't care so much about that. So, I think, to Nayer's point, part of what the Democratic campaign needed to do was focus on action. What are they actually going to do? And I feel like every time they got asked that, it was more about pointing at the bad thing Trump is going to do without ever actually putting much of a plan forward themselves, right? They pointed at Agenda 47 and the 2025 or Project 2025, more or less constantly, thinking that would save them. But the problem is, no one's reading those, or if they are, they're not reading them in a negative light, especially not Project 2025. I think it was like 900 pages long. No one's fucking going over that. They wanted sound bites, and I say they wanted, the electorate wanted sound bites of how they were going to fix the problems that they saw, right? When they talk about inflation, well, they say, well, inflation's down, the lowest it's been in however long. But the problem is that only addresses inflation now and, year over year. That doesn't address the fact that things are still really fucking expensive, especially as compared to wages, right? If you look at the total cumulative inflation from before COVID to now versus the total wage increase over that same period of time, you still find that the ratio, the prices as compared to income are still higher than they were pre-COVID. So that's the thing that people care about, and like, you've got to find a way. I don't doubt, the messaging experts within the Democratic Party can find a way to do this. You got to find a way to message it saying, we understand your pain. Here are the things we're going to do to fix that and make it more compelling than the bullshit Trump is putting out. And I've lost my train of thought, so I'm going to end it there.
Yep. Well, the thing is, like, it's like, sorry, ex-professor made a very good point. Is like messaging, because like there were times like I was arguing with people that are voting for Trump. They says, wait a second, why are you able to articulate and argue her position so well, but she can't? I was like, well, she does argue the position, but again, they focus on the unimportant things. They didn't ask her about healthcare. They asked her about like all these other issues, and they just stayed on that topic. Like they talked about immigration. They stayed on the border. Why? Because that's the issue that everybody was talking about, essentially. So, but the thing is, like, every time you talk about, like, well, what's Trump's plan for healthcare? They've got nothing. You could ask him about all of his plans, and he says the same thing every time. We will do things to the likes of which no one's ever seen or ever thought possible, and people still buying it. It's sort of like the more you repeat it, the more people believe it. It's the repetition thing. You got it. The more you say it, the more people buy into it. Even though there's no plan whatsoever, he still doesn't have a plan for healthcare, for crying out loud. But it's because he's so good at marketing and getting his messages out there, even though they're all bullshit. I mean, you still got people believing that there's Haitian migrants eating cats and dogs in Ohio. People still believe that crap, even though it's not true. Yeah. I do think like there was also like a I think like what Kyle Kalinske brought up is like, why did she have so many like, and listen, I'm a fan of Mark Cuban. I think he had some great ideas, But I do think that she kind of tied herself to a lot of like wealthy people, and people like saw that, which that probably also didn't help her as well. Like Mark Cuban's like one of the few billionaires that I think that actually has a moral compass. The rest of them are like pretty shitty though, but it's because like unlike most of the billionaires, he was actually talking about like PBM reform, and that's another issue that nobody whatsoever is talking about, and that's something that we really need to kind of zero in on. I mean, are you guys familiar with that?
No, go ahead and explain that.
PBMs are pharmacy benefit managers. They are the middleman for like if you have a doctor that says you need this medication and you have an insurance, they're the ones that are the middlemen. The PBMs are the middlemen that negotiate the drug prices with your insurance company. So, for example, there's 3 PBMs that have the 80% of the market. One of them is CVS, right? Now, we all know that these big corporations essentially can charge whatever they want to. They can have like cheaper prices. What they're doing though is they're stifling out independent pharmacies, because if you've got a pharmacy in the middle of bumfuck Kansas essentially that has like it's been there for 40 plus years, but yet you've got a CVS that's like in the next town over, and let's say for example you need allopurinol because you've got gout. The allopurinol that you need to get is like $90 because it costs so much more to come to this independent contractor, but you can get that same prescription for $25, and that's just a rough guess. I mean, I'm just spitballing right now at the CVS. So obviously you're going to go to the CVS right now because they can afford to take that steep dive because they want to have control of these markets. Now, they actually had in the White House discussion about doing PBM reform. They had an independent pharmacist from Kansas that says, if we don't do PBM reform, we're going to lose 34% of independent pharmacies across the country. And I did the math. That's 14,000 pharmacies across the country. That's a lot of pharmacies. And guess who's going to control the market then? CVS and all the other companies, all these other big PBMs are going to take control of this market, and they're going to charge whatever the hell they want to because they are the only competition out there, and nobody else is going to be able to compete with them on that level because they are so massive. I mean, when I first read this, it's like, why aren't more people why isn't anybody talking about this? Because it's a very, very complex issue. Healthcare is a very complex issue. So anyway, sorry, I keep yakking.
Nobody knew.
Yeah, but I mean, PBMs are fucking evil, and the problem is, like, aside from CVS, most PBMs are actually owned by the very insurance companies that they work for. So, like, the level of vertical integration that, especially companies like United Health Group, which owns, health insurance, a PBM, an entire hospital network, that they employ thousands of doctors, nurses, and other hospital staff. The level of vertical integration they've been able to achieve in order to just massively rip people off of all sorts of shit that they, need because it's, that's right, medicine and keeps people alive. Kind of disgusting. Just about as disgusting as yacht milk, as Lethe pointed out.
So we're definitely at that point where we need to start talking about healthcare, and I think that may be an L that we have not focused more on speaking about bettering healthcare. So like we already got to the point where we have more people with health insurance than we ever had before. What do we do, or what could we lay out in the future that's going to show that the cost of healthcare is going to go down and make it more desirable for more people and keep us from having situations and sentiments like we've had recently?
Well, go ahead.
Okay, so the problem with this statistic that we have more people on health insurance than we have before, that's a little bit misleading because it implies that everyone who is on health insurance can get all of their healthcare needs taken care of with relative ease, which isn't really the case because most of those people are going to be on the minimum level of health insurance that they can afford, right? So those bronze and silver plans, as opposed to the gold and platinum plans, or however they're categorized these days. I haven't checked that marketplace in a while to see exactly how that's done. But the point stands that like most people are insured, but are probably underinsured. They do not have the level of insurance they need simply because they can't afford the premiums. And so if they go and actually use their health insurance, they have higher co-pays, higher co-insurances, higher deductibles, meaning they still can't go get the health care they actually need because the insurance plan they have isn't going to pay for what they actually need. So I think that that is a really critical thing to point out because it gives us a false sense of how well the health insurance and health coverage issue in the US is going. And I think it gives people this false idea when it's still kind of pretty crappy for a lot of people. Like, yeah, most people have health insurance. Doesn't mean that if something major comes up, they're not going to get fucked.
Yeah. And, like, the thing is, like, you could push the idea of healthcare for all, like Medicare for all, or whatever, universal healthcare. But the thing is, then the scary word of socialism, communism comes into play. And then you got people saying, well, wait a second, how are we going to pay for this? Well, the thing is like, when it comes down to, like, funding the military industrial complex, there is no limit to, like, we're almost to $1 trillion right now in that budget. And a lot of that is developed into R&D. Because here's the thing. Let's say, for example, if you took $200 billion from the national defense budget, which I would be perfectly okay with. Hell, you can even take $300 billion. The defense contractors are not going to be the ones that are going to be affected by it. It's going to be the soldiers, the service members, the airmen, the Coast Guardsmen. They're the ones going to be affected first. They're going to have to cut back on training days. They're going to have to cut back on, like, chow out in the field. That's how things fucking work. It's criminal. Like, I really wish I could explain this better, because there was actually an episode, like, this is going to blow your mind, right? There, my good friend Michael Hilliard did an episode about shipyard building, right? Because we talk about, like, how China is building massive fleets of ships, right? And they're pushing out ships at an astronomical rate. Like, they're twice the size of our average fleets. But the thing is, though, the quality of ships is not exactly good. But the thing is, though, is that, like, we are trying to build ships. But the thing is, we're trying to make sure that the ships that we're building are technologically advanced. They have the best state-of-the-art equipment. So it's going to cost a little bit more. Well, there was a contract that we gave to a company to build an icebreaker. I can't remember where it was exactly, but the contract was for like $9 billion. And guess how many ships they ended up building? Zero. Wow. They ended up selling that same dock for $16 million. I was fucking pissed. I was like, oh my God, they got a contract for $9 billion and they sold it for $16 million. Like, that is crap. But the thing is, like, that is just standard practice. It's like, what the hell is going on here? And it's just, that's the stuff that bothers the hell out of me. But again, the people that are developing the weapons, they're not the ones that are going to be affected if you cut money from the defense budget. It's going to be the soldiers that are going to be affected first. So, like, that's kind of like where it all gets played into it. And, like, Ro Khanna says, listen, I'm all for cutting the military budget, but then I got accused of hating the military. I hate the military. They're going to use that against you. It's like, oh my God, this guy hates the military. He wants to cut the funding. No, it's not the problem. It's the fact that, we're no longer engaged in a war. The only wars we're funding right now is one's a genocide and the other one's an invasion. So, and yes, I said what I said. So,
well, but, you actually touched on something that I was interested in. Why are we not allowed to use certain words, and why aren't words allowed to mean what they mean at this point? So, like, when you said, if you want to give universal health care is considered socialism, communism, which that isn't necessarily what it is. It is not communism. It's definitely a form of socialism, but we have a semi-socialist economy. We have, programs for people, which we like these programs. So same thing with, like, racism. Like, we're not allowed to say racism. I had IPA in here last week, and I showed him a video of Ann Coulter speaking to Vivek Ramaswamy. Yeah. And she essentially just said, black people can't be called articulate, and I wouldn't vote for you because you're Indian. Like, what do you call that at that point? So do we shy away from words because people over-hyperbolize them?
It's like, go ahead.
literally call myself a communist because I know what communism actually is, and the fact that other people don't doesn't change the fact that I know what it means. And like, I take issue with this idea of calling universal healthcare socialism because that's not what socialism means, or at least it doesn't fit in with any definition of socialism that contains a trace back to the original ideas of socialism in the early 19th century. So like that's the problem, is we don't agree what words mean because people use them in really bizarre ways. Now, that's not to say that these ways are necessarily wrong. I am, at the end of the day, a linguistic descriptivist, not a prescriptivist. I just know what I mean when I say these words, and the meaning that I understand does not jibe with, the meanings that a lot of other people try to put on them, which is why I refuse to let other people determine, what labels I use for myself. Because ultimately, labels kind of suck, but they're something that we use every day, largely out of necessity and convenience. So they're going to stick around regardless. So the best thing I can do is just try and educate people on what I mean when I say these words. And while I could go into that here, I don't think anyone wants wants a lesson on the meanings of socialism, communism, etc. But like, when we're talking about, the ideas of racism, or just in general what we can and cannot say, like, no one is actually preventing anyone from saying whatever they want, at least, with the exception of the various platforms who have the right to do that for the speech on their own platform. Like, no one is preventing Ann Coulter from saying the words that she wants to say about whoever she wants to say it about. The problem is, you also have to think about social consequences, because at the end of the day, we rely on our interactions with other people, and when people don't want to interact with us, that kind of impacts our ability to live our lives. So language is not just about what you can and cannot say, it's about who's going to be upset when you say what you want.
That's
And
not. I don't think that, because he wasn't calling universal healthcare socialism.
no,
It's the fear mongering term, because they always have a keyword that's associated with, like um, the grooming and indoctrination, right? You always hear the people who have been highly fear mongered about these things. They use these terms because that's what they link them to in their head, right? And that's the kind of same thing with um, universal healthcare. They have a fear mongering campaign they've had for decades now about communism and socialism. So it's very easy to jump to that word to get the people. Oh my God, it's communism. Oh, oh, I can't do that. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
it's not the fact that it's the key word that's in the long-term fear-mongering campaign to manipulate people into thinking the way people want.
Yes, but over time, that fear mongering becomes the new meaning of the word. Like, if you ask someone what socialism is today, outside of the group of people that we tend to talk to, who tend to have a little bit more knowledge on this, if you go to a random person and say, is universal healthcare socialism, they're fairly likely, I think, to say yes. Because like, they think that when government pays for things, that's socialism. It's more about the fact that the fear mongering, the propaganda usage ends up displacing the meaning of the word, at least within the general usage of it by the non-debate brained normies of the world, and that kind of screws with all this shit.
And that's the problem, though. It's like it's like you just kind of hit the nail on the head, though. It's just like the average person doesn't know what socialism and communism means. Like, they might have learned about it in school, but I had the attention span of a goldfish when I was in high school too. I didn't know what that meant. I just, half the time, I didn't pay attention. Like, learning about these issues, right? It's like you can ask people on social media, especially on the right. It's like, what does communism mean? and they'll give you examples of Cuba, North Korea, but they won't answer the question. They say that's what communism means. Like, that's not what I asked. What's the definition? Without looking it up, what's communism? And they can't give you a direct answer. And the thing is like that again, that is just like a detriment because it's the buzzwords and like extra hit it. Just like people use the buzzwords because it gets people talking, it gets their attention. It's not because they know what they're talking about, but it's just like they use these terms because that's what people latch onto. They latch, oh, universal healthcare sounds like socialism. Who's going to pay for it? Hey, we need to take $200 billion. And this person is anti-military. This person hates the military. It gets people talking, and then that's what just like kind of like swallows the whole news cycle. And they'll talk about it for 6 weeks. It's just like that's kind of like what I'm looking at.
Yep.
I was looking at
during
the debate.
I think a lot of this.
Trump straight up saying like, "Hey, Kamala's father is a communist socialist." Like, to be able to say these things openly without any scrutiny whatsoever is a bit wild. But then when it's used in the other direction, you tend to say like, "Oh, well, you say everything is this, so nothing is this."
If we amplify everything, we hear nothing, though. That's the thing, because again, I hate to say this, and like, there are times like where people on the left have a tendency to just like the second they hear that something goes against the narrative, they automatically jump to the term. Like, I've been called Nazi more times than I can count. I was like, what? No, how am I a Nazi? It's like, because you don't agree with it. It's like, listen, I don't like Antifa because I see them burning, some streets down and shit. Like, I'm not saying all Antifa is bad, but I just like when I see them do bad things, like, no, that's fucking wrong. And I get called a Nazi for that. I was like, no, that's not what that is. That's not what that means. But like at the same time, you got people on the right that call everything communist and socialist. They call everything like it's just they amplify everything. And it's just like, Jon Stewart said it again. I like to quote Jon Stewart. If we amplify everything, we hear nothing. And I think that's the truest statement. But again, how do we help people understand? It's like, no, that's not what that means. Here's a book. Here's a definition. Do a little bit of research. How do we help people understand? I mean, I shouldn't have to be doing this. Like the news should be doing these things. But the thing is, it's not about what's right. It's about what sells. Sell the sizzle, not the steak. If it leads, it bleeds, or bleeds, it leads.
What do you think, Ancom?
Well, I mean, he's right about the if it bleeds, it leads, and unfortunately, that is so I've been rewatching this old sci-fi show from the '90s called The Pretender, and one of them was in a TV newsroom. One of the episodes was set there, and the editor keeps saying that phrase, and I'm like, this is something that's been with us for a very long time, and it's kind of fucked because like. This is, in my opinion, what happens when you mix, a profit motive with journalism, with the idea of reporting on the goings-on of the world. The profit motive tends to incentivize those stories which are the most sensational and not necessarily those news stories which are the most important. So that's what kind of fucks it all up for me. And like that is, well, I don't want to get too conspiratorial here, but like it's a form of propaganda of removing the actual important shit that people need to know about and inserting the bombastic, headline grabbing, attention grabbing nonsense that people pay attention to because it's exciting.
Well, it's kind of bonkers to me at this point. Like, you get one side of the aisle that sits there and calls everything communist and socialist, but then the same people, well, other people on that side, start spouting pro-Russian propaganda. How does this work? Like, how do these two ideas live in the same space?
Well,
because... Well, in my my opinion, the way that they exist in the same space is because of the ever so vaunted marketplace of ideas. As long as there is a market for both of these kinds of information to be put out there, Whether or not that information is true tends to have very little impact. As long as there is a market for the kind of information, people will pay money for it.
It's not even about paying money. It's like I've been told that calling it state media is wrong because it's not a state media. But I've always thought the most effective definition of state media isn't the fact that it's by the state. It's the fact that it's giving propaganda based on the leaders, right? And so I call like right wing media state media in that way because they're pushing propaganda. They're working hand in hand with their leaders to push propaganda and thought points out to their people, right? And it kind of got me thinking because there's that what we need because free process is very important so that we know what our government's doing. But if we need not just free press but free unintegrated separate press where they still report on things but they cannot work hand in hand with them because like just look at January 6th, right? In January 6th, the majority of people were like, oh God, this is horrible. This is horrible. Look a year later, people are like, oh, well, there's some silly stuff. Now, 4 years later, and you have imbeciles saying that it was a Nancy Pelosi, it was an FBI thing, it wasn't that big of a deal, when it was fucking huge fucking deal. But 4 years of state media starting to then change the minds of people. And you don't have to have truth on your side when you have a state media convincing people, you can do whatever you want. Like in Matt Gaetz right now is a horrible person, but give them 2 years of covering it up and it will be nothing. Now they're not going to do it for Matt Gaetz. They'll do it for Donald Trump. Don't ask me why.
You think they didn't try for Matt Gaetz?
No, they definitely undersold it. Because the Republicans clearly knew he was shit. I mean, we didn't hear it from the right wing media. They definitely did try to cover it up, but they didn't lay all the groundwork that they did for Trump, obviously.
Well, what's amazing is the fact that, years ago, does everybody remember Anthony Weiner?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You remember what he did, right?
I heard he ordered pizza or something like that.
No, what he did was, well, well played. What he did was he sent lewds to people that were underage on Twitter, right? And it was pictures of his nether regions essentially, and they leaked it to the press, and the Democratic Party was like, oh my God, you got to step down, dude. This is fucking way too far and shit like that. But then you've also had a guy named John Vitter, who was I want to say he was a Republican out of Louisiana. The guy had multiple affairs with a woman known as the Madame of D.C. She's an escort service, lied about it, and the Republicans embraced him essentially. And now, fast forward a few years, the most recent Republican that got released was George Santos, because that's just completely indefensible. And Matt Gaetz, everybody knew that he was a scumbag. The only people that like Matt Gaetz is Marjorie Trader Green, Lauren Boebert, and the rest of the MAGA clan, essentially. They're the only ones that really like him. But the only reason why he was being considered is because he's so loyal to Trump. Again, it's just all this loyalty. That's all he cares about. But the guy had to drop out because there's so much baggage around. It would have just been dead weight around Donald Trump's neck, essentially. It would have been Brett Kavanaugh, but much worse, because this time they had receipts, actual receipts, not dumb calendars from Christmas 1977 or something like that, I mean,
literal receipts from his Cash App.
Exactly. That's my point.
And the other thing is George Santos lasted way too long.
Yeah.
Right. Even though it was against her thing, what's his name from, what was it, Minnesota, the comedian from SNL.
Oh,
Al Franken.
Yes. Yep.
He was out within the month, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Once that came out, within a month, he was pretty much forced to
resign.
He
resigned. Yeah, he resigned.
Santos lasted what, a year and a half?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, but it's amazing because Lauren Boebert is still in Congress and she was performing lewd acts in front of children. If Lauren Boebert was a man, was Lance Boebert would have been out on his ass essentially, but Lauren Boebert You know, guys like, oh man, I wish she was my congresswoman kind of deal. Like they cut her some slack. She's dumb as a box of fucking hammers, essentially. You know, Marge is even worse. But like Republicans will seem to like ignore something as long as you're in cahoots with Donald Trump. That's all that fucking matters. Like I think just Matt Gaetz is just too much dead weight though.
And so, like, this is kind of getting to what I've been asking for a good chunk of the night, and I don't think we've really found a good line on it. And
Sure.
NoCal Mike pretty much pointed out, like, exactly where I've been going with this. Al Franken had to resign over a photo of him pretending to grab a woman inappropriately. The Anthony Weiner thing got blown into a full conspiracy theory about pizza and adrenochrome and all kind of other nonsense. Whereas
Wait,
you have
the Pizzagate thing came from Anthony Weiner? I thought that was totally separate.
That was the start of it, and then they began to look at pizza orders from Comet Ping Pong. They tied that into, well, these pizza orders seem strange. They must be ordering children. And like they literally think like orders from like IKEA and stuff like that are actually children being ordered in disguise. Like
Wayfair.
Wayfair.
Oh yeah, I remember the Wayfair thing.
So it wasn't proven. It's so stupid, but people believe it because it's not mainstream media. Like Breitbart pushed that bullshit narrative, and it was all a crock of shit.
So you literally have a dude that got caught.
I remember that shit showing up on TikTok, like the whole Wayfair thing.
So you have a committee report showing that Matt Gaetz paid a 17-year-old for sex. Yet the speculation that something happened on the left is, we're going to make huge conspiracies about this. How come there's no conspiracies or any crazy thinking when it comes down to that on the right? So to what point should we hold our own accountable, and when does it become excessive, like what happened with Al Franken?
Well, I think in retrospect, people are thinking like what he did was just, they think like forcing him to resign was too far, but it's just because at the time, you know, if looking in retrospect, when, and I'm not, I swear I'll answer it, but like in retrospect, during the 2012 campaign, the thing that sunk Mitt Romney was he said 47% of Americans rely on the government, essentially. That was like,
hey,
oh
CTV,
my God.
Thank you for the raid. Appreciate it.
There was like, that was like the biggest controversy of the decade. That was like, oh my God, what a horrible thing to say. But now we've kind of degraded ourselves to a level where like you can pretty much say, if you're a certain person, you can pretty much say anything you want to, and you're going to get away with it. And that's kind of like where we're at right now. But it's very selective. It's very selective on one person could say one thing, but the other person, don't you freaking dare say whatever you're saying, because you're going to be looked at as wrong. You're going to be hounded. You're going to be, grab your torch and you're going to be tarred and feathered, essentially. It's really selective, honestly. Like we have no consistency in the political spectrum.
Well, okay.
I mean,
from my perspective,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, but just because it's kind of designed that way, because it doesn't really matter what you say about, they have something to say about anything. I kind of said this is like, they have to be the smartest person, but also not smart. They have to be like really, involved, but they can't be involved, right? They got to be, it's a duality. It doesn't matter what they do. There's always going to be, even if it contradicts what they said last week. It's like one thing about Obama, like 1 week he was way too involved. He's using the power of the presidency, like way too involved. And the next week he's not involved enough, and I think it was two different things, but it doesn't really matter what they say. They're just going to, and you cannot try to do gymnastics to meet what they're going to say, because no matter what, they're going to say that it's bad. Right. And trying to pretend that they're being honest actors in it is the problem, not the fact that, whatever critique that we've kind of bought in that they started, that is absolutely fucking absurd.
Yeah, from my perspective, neither side is good with consistency and accountability, but one side does seem to be better than the other. The examples we've been giving of, we have, okay, so the four key examples that seem to exemplify this, we have our Matt Gaetz, George Santos, Al Franken, and Anthony Weiner. Two Republicans,
Menendez, the Democrats?
Yeah. 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. The 2 Democrats actually were held accountable and were removed from their positions for inappropriate behavior relatively shortly after this information was made aware. The other 2, the Republicans, did objectively significantly worse shit and managed to hold on to their positions for quite a long time, despite repeated and vociferous calls to remove them. Again, neither party is great with accountability, but it does seem like one is maybe just a tick above the other, and I do feel like when we're talking about this and we're saying, where's the accountability? Where's the consistency? Why are we letting it slide sometimes and holding them accountable others? I think there's a decently clear delineation, and show me a case where the Republicans have swiftly and justly held their own accountable in a way that the Democrats seem to have done. Not in every case, mind you. I can think of a couple off the top of my head where I'm just like, what the fuck? Why did they allow this? But more often, at least, the distinction seems fairly clear to me, as much as I hate to give kudos to the Democrats.
So I think this gets to, when is it considered virtue signaling? And when is it actually holding the other side, holding your own accountable? So like in the case of Bill Clinton getting caught up over the Monica Lewinsky thing, that was like a straight up fishing expedition. And Republicans wouldn't be down for that. Now you have Republicans now saying Nixon never should have stepped down. So we're in a very different atmosphere. So like, when is it just virtue signaling and when is it literally holding people accountable? We don't have an answer.
Well, I think with the righties right now, they just realize that they can do whatever they want just as long as there's not enough pushback, and they know that they can run cover using their media, their state media, right? They can run cover and try to change the thoughts on it. Now, if it doesn't get to a point where it's reasonable and it's going to hurt them, they're going to fucking cut and run.
Well, the way I look at it, right? Anytime you're critical of somebody, like especially me as somebody that's on the left, anytime I'm critical of something that Trump might have done, right? You know what answer I get? Well, what about this? What about that? What about this? There is no defense for what he does, but they're just looking for, oh, well, were you upset about this? I get it all the time, especially with people that are on the right. They say, well, both sides do this. I was like, well, yeah, both sides might do this, but I'm talking about your guy right now. It's like, well, what about this guy? Like, that's all you're going to get. It's like, well, what about this person? What about this person? Like, that's all they do, all right? And I try to avoid whataboutisms as much as I can. Sometimes you can't really avoid it, though, but it's just like, that's the problem. It's like, you could talk about all these issues, but then, like, when you try to approach, like, okay, Senator Joe Snuffy from Wyoming, look what he did. Oh, really? So you're upset about that? Well, what about this senator, your senator from Alaska? She's terrible too. It's like, well, she didn't do anything wrong, but they're going to try to find a whataboutism to deflect from this idea that their guy is bad or something.
So yeah, most of the time when that shit comes up, I'll just be like, yeah, what they did is bad too. Now let's get back to the actual point. Like, I just bite the bullet and move on is the best way I found to deal with it, because then they're a little bit flabbergasted. They expected to derail and put you on the defensive and just bite the bullet and move on, and suddenly they, it robs them of that particular tactic. It's a dishonest bullshit tactic, but it's easier to defuse than to try to, argue against the tactic itself.
So this is one of the things I had kind of an issue with when you guys were talking earlier, and something that was said in chat, and like the whole thing about Trump being going to be a dictator and whatever like that. Like, the point about these statements it's not the fact that you're predicting the future, right? You can't predict the future. You don't know what's going to be like, because like the January 6th. Like if Trump could have gone away with a coup, I think he would have done a coup, but he wouldn't have gotten away with it. The military wasn't going to back him, right? But I think he would have if he could have gotten away with it. And that's the problem. You can't predict the future, right? It's you. All you gotta do is like you're thinking like looking at the morals and the ethics of the person. Like John, like most politicians, like 99% of politicians, even though there might be some chance we can't know their mind, you would say like there's a not zero chance of them possibly running a coup on the United States, right? But it's most likely like not a fucking chance. Donald Trump, you're like, well, if the situation's right, you know he would. And that's the point about the whole dictator thing, right? It's not saying he's going to be a dictator in day one because he has to have backing. It's the fact that he would do it.
Yeah. Anyway, so Lethe, I actually got to leave here shortly. So
Been a blast, my dude. Thanks for coming through.
Absolutely. I just want to say, Lethe, thank you so much for having me on for this, and to our Filipinos, X-Row, and Ancom. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Ancom. X-Row, pleasure talking to you as well. But yeah, I just think it's really, really important for us to like. The best thing I can say is like just stay the course and just hold Trump accountable every time he screws up. Just blast and say why he's wrong and stuff like that. Even if people don't believe it, it's like that's my goal. That's what I'm gonna be doing for the next 4 years because the midterms are gonna be here before we know it. So we just gotta find like good candidates that are going to represent our values the best. That's the best I can honestly say at this point. So, but yeah, thanks for everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank you for everybody in the chat. And anyway, y'all have a great evening. I will catch y'all on the flip side.
Thanks for coming through.
Absolutely. Take care.
So a lot of what I think the whataboutism comes down to is being able to mentally justify X or Y for the person that is bringing up the whataboutism. So I think one of the main ones was when you speak about any issues with minors that a candidate on one side has, they want to bring up something even close to it like, oh, well, this person's a little weird around kids. They're not equivalent, but they want to be able to think, well, if your side is doing it too, I'm still sticking to my values. These things don't matter. And I think that's a really interesting mechanism that's been showing itself more often.
I think it's like the whole concept that they have this negative view of all politicians, right? So they already think they're bad. So they're just going to get the what's least bad, in my opinion, that follows my policies. So they already think, like the what aboutism with Trump. It's like they're looking at politicians. If you ask anyone, they're going to say, well, we know they're corrupt. But they are corrupt in a way, but they're usually corrupt in a way that follows laws in place, right? They follow the norms of those positions. And obviously, there's one person that came along and doesn't follow any of those norms. He doesn't give a shit. Like if, like we don't go to Russia and try to get information on our opponents, right? So, well, yeah, he is. We don't go to Ukraine and hold up money and aid for the war for an investigation on Biden. Well, he will, no other person will do that because they know that crosses a line. They have a boundary that they won't cross. And there's one person that will cross it every time. I mean, there's more. I think Vivek's kind of that guy. Some other people that kind of, Matt Gaetz is probably that type of person. But, that's the whole difference is like we do have a level of integrity in our politicians, even though, the laws have been put in place where it kind of benefits them. And we need to change those laws, which is difficult because they're putting the laws in place, but they do actually follow those laws for the most part.
So, like, one of the best examples I can give of this is like the constant talking point about George Soros money in the Democrat Party. And then when the shoe's on the other foot and it's Elon doing it, that same level of fervor isn't there. So if they can say, well, we believe your side is already doing this, so if our side does it, it's just leveling the playing field, when that's not the reality of what's going on. But if you believe that that is what's going on, or if you can at least give yourself that moral equivalence, you don't feel the need to hold yourself accountable for that.
I mean, it's just taking a logical fallacy the next step, right? It's the reverse whataboutism, effectively. It's, they use the whole George Soros funding shit against the Democrats, and then they say, well, Elon Musk is doing it, so that's evening the playing field, even though the scope and magnitude of these two is just wildly different.
How's it going, Ty?
Hey, Ty.
Yeah, the scope and
You're not coming
magnitude
through.
is wildly different. Yeah, he's muted if he's saying anything. But I just can't understand how if this was something you really had a problem with. So I think it's a different type of virtue signaling coming from each side.
Check 1 2.
Oh,
There he
you
is.
think
There
they
you go.
actually
Sorry
you
about
think
that.
they
My
actually
dog's
have a
being
problem
stupid.
with it, and they're not just using it as a rhetorical gotcha? That's, I think, where the mistake is being made, because I don't think they actually care all that much. If they do, it's certainly not as much as they make it seem with the amount of volume they give about it.
Well,
I
they've
have
shown
two
they don't
questions.
care about it. Yeah, by all means.
One's a little bit of a personal one for you, Lethe, real quick. I know kind of in the general area where you live, but I hear like northern LA is literally on fire right now. You good?
Yeah. Yesterday I got home. I thought somebody was chain smoking Lucky Strikes outside of my window. Then I realized, oh no, literally the city directly next to me is entirely on fire.
Okay,
So
like
it's
what-
pretty bad.
From what I understand, like it's literally on the edge of the urban area, and they don't know if they can control it.
The
it's
wind
super bad.
was ridiculous yesterday. The wind's calmed down a lot since
Uh-huh.
yesterday, so I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was. But the wind was like we had more wind yesterday than I've seen in the better part of 5 years. So it was like the
Gotcha.
worst timing for a fire to pop off I could think of.
Now,
Combination
if you're
disasters kind of thing.
if
Yeah.
your place does catch on fire, we do have you do have to give an outro before you leave.
Fair enough.
The Sprouticus clause.
So can you guys catch me up on what the conversation is?
So I had a conversation with Alex Kirsch, and so we were basically talking about the political climate, the limbo we're in right now of what will be done, what won't be done, how much hyperbole should be allowed in that conversation to not completely destroy any credibility or political capital going forward. So it was pretty much along those lines.
So what's the conclusion here? Because I've got a couple of different thoughts that comes from that.
Oh, there's absolutely no conclusion. This is all open to speculation at this point because, you look at everybody was saying for years, hey, Donald Trump's going to be this kind of dictator. He's going to do this. This is what's going to happen. Then now that, we're in that limbo period where he's already elected, but he hasn't taken office. Where is he flip-flopping, like already with the H-1B stuff? There's some flip-flopping when it comes down to the lowering the prices on groceries. He's saying, well, that's a little difficult. I don't think I can do that.
Did he flip-flop on H-1Bs, or is that Elon and company?
I mean, that's his administration, so that's going to be the stance. Like initially, when people were voting for him, they're voting for Americans to get these jobs. Now, all of a sudden, it's H-1B holders are going to start getting the jobs that a lot of middle class and upper middle class people sent their kids to school for. They don't like that.
So
Wait, they're going to continue to get those jobs.
Yeah. So here's the issue. From my understanding, Trump has been remotely quiet on this, but it's been like a full tilt conversation in the incoming administration where it's like, I think it's Ramaswamy and it's Elon versus I think Gabbard, RFK, and I think there's one other person, and Trump's been hasn't like come out saying anything yet. I could be wrong, but like it's very clear like there's an internal fight going on. Because some of them are like, yeah, like we need to actually care for the workers that we voted for us. And Elon and Ramaswamy just went full mask off, and they're just like, they're fucking retarded. Like, we can't hire them. They don't want to work. They're fucking retarded. They don't know shit. Like, it's wild, dude. Like, literally, they've gone. I don't know if they've gone full defector. I don't want to say like something like that, but we're watching in real time, like where the rubber is actually trying to hit the road, and it's blowing my mind a little bit. Anyway, I digress. But like that's what I'm watching. Like you're having a class warfare battle within the Republican Party.
Yeah, this is what happens when you have a candidate who ran on populism now being massively influenced by gigantic corporatist donors. Like this is the macrocosm of all politics filtered into a single presidency. It's kind of wild.
I mean, I'm kind of with you on that. Like, this is the general issue that I've had with the average person. And like, MAGA pisses me off severely when it comes to this conversation, but they're not alone. We keep getting into this conversation where people vote on populism or they support like populist measures, and then they actually have to have the conversation of running every fucking thing. And it's like the rubber hits the road. It's like, I need people who can actually do shit. And the average person who is supposed to be people I'm supposed to be helping can't, which is why I want the old Republican Party back. I want people that's just like, hey, look, we are elites, but we're here to do a job for you because you are too fucking busy or you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And it's weird because the Republican Party's kind of doing that again, where you're seeing people like Elon and Ramaswamy do that. And the problem is I hate them more than the populists, and I fucking can't stand populists.
So Trump came out in a press conference to basically say, we do want the H-1B visas and basically support what Vivek and Elon were saying, not quite as strongly as they were saying it, because they just straight up said that Americans are too dumb and lazy to be able to take up these jobs. So their messaging was far more heavy-handed than what Trump said, but he still was backing what they were saying.
I was wondering if he could take a side in that fight.
Oh, he did.
Fair enough.
And of course, he sided with the people who paid for his campaign.
I don't even think it's a paid for campaign thing. Like it's not nepotism. It literally is like, I got an administration to run and I need people who can actually fucking do it. Like I want Trump to literally do the thing and just tell people, it's like, look, you voted for me, but you guys don't pull your fucking weight. Like, he's never going to do it, but I would love to see it. But I'm going to tell people that for fucking sure. It's like, hey, what do you think Trump flipped on H-1Bs? You're all retarded. Like, I don't care how many of you fucking voted for him. Gibbs and company does not make it an effective administration. And even Trump knows that.
I mean, I disagree that it's not nepotism. It's just in this case, the nepotism is going to the people with the ability to do the thing.
I think it's functionality.
Despite being incredibly corrupt.
I don't think it's corrupt at all. One, like, this is the point of the system, is that you're supposed to bring people who can actually get shit done for the people that voted for you. The problem is that the people who keep voting for anybody in this country, but most of the populace, have this weird idea that things are supposed to work for them, but not actually do anything about it. Like, they have to be the instrument of change, and they keep asking other people to do it for them. Like, no wonder why they keep getting pissed on. It's not.
Yes, I mean, that is a basic tenet of populism that they are missing, which is you actually have to be able to do the shit you want to do if you're gonna be populist. It's why I don't actually think that they are populist in anything but name, because they still want all the shit done for them. They just want it.
They're lazy populists.
Exactly. Like, if you're gonna actually be a populist, step the fuck up.
So here's the full statement. President-elect Donald Trump told the Post Saturday he supports immigration visas for highly skilled workers, appearing to side with Elon Musk and roiling into MAGA debate on the issue. I've always liked the visas. I've always been in favor of the visas. That's why we have them, Trump said by phone, referring to the H-1B program, which permits companies to hire foreign workers in specialty occupations. I have many H-1B visas on my properties. I've been a believer in H-1B. I have used it many times. It's a great program, added Trump, who restricted access to foreign workers' visas in his first administration and has been critical of the program in the past. So he's definitely flip-flopped on this one.
Oh my God.
Go on.
Like this feels like some fucking 1984 shit. Like seriously, it is it is 4 years ago or 5, I guess. Anyways, it was, I hate H-1B visas, let's get rid of them. And now I've always loved H-1B visas. They've always been great. I've always been in support of them. My God, how do people fall for this shit?
Well, I think it's a little bit different than 1984 because I don't think it's the fact that he really was firm on his policy of H-1B visas like 4 years ago. I just think he's so uninformed on policy in general that like he can be switched on a dime based on who he's talking to.
No, I remember H-1Bs being a huge deal in like the 2016 to 2020 range. Like I remember that issue coming up almost constantly being talked about. Like he was very clear during his first term about how much he disliked work visas. So this flip-flop is so egregious. I'm like, how the fuck are people not seeing right goddamn through this?
Well, I'm just saying it doesn't. I think he might have thought it was advantageous, and so he went all in on it. I mean, I could be
All I'm
wrong.
saying
I don't remember.
my-
I don't remember his exact wordage.
My comparison to 1984 was about, we've always been at war with this, this country, and then they switch in, oh, now we've always been at war with this country. It's
Gotcha.
that level of thought manipulation.
So I caught the message, but I did not understand what Zephyr was saying when he sent the bits. The dong is like crashing. So apparently the U.S. trade deficit with Vietnam has soared beyond 110 billion as the weak dong boosts exports.
Wait, we're now getting $100 billion worth of stuff from Vietnam?
Yeah, the U.S. trade deficit with Vietnam exceeded 110 billion in the first 11 months of 2024. Latest U.S. figures show as exports from the Southeast Asian industrial hub grew amid a record fall of its currency against the dollar. The latest reading, released on Tuesday by the U.S. Statistics Agency, showed a nearly 18% rise in the deficit compared with the same period the previous year. The data confirms that the communist-run country has the fourth highest commercial surplus, with the United States topped only by China, the European Union, and Mexico.
Holy shit.
So what we're saying is we're 2 of our 4 biggest partners in trade are communists. Checkmate, capitalists.
Oh my god! I think that's more of an indication that the so-called communists are selling out. I know you are. This is wild. So, like, the reason I about shit up break here is that the economy of Vietnam that I checked last time was like $300 billion. Granted, it's up to $465 billion by estimate. But it's like that's a fourth of their entire economy is just exporting to the United States.
Because we like our cheap mass-produced shit.
I need more protectionism. God damn it, we're not doing it right.
Well,
I'm doing it in my game, and it's working out fucking fantastic right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, but we're in a climate where we don't want that.
It's actually
simulated in your simulated version of 19th century Europe. I'm assuming you're talking about Victoria 3.
I am playing with Victoria 3, and it is global. You actually can test a lot of economic theory in this, and it's not like really simple. It's actually a pretty good economic engine. There's a couple of things that I would absolutely want to throw hay at, but. Like, I've done the free trade run and I've done the protectionist run. They do have very realistic outcomes, in my opinion. Protectionism is a little bit slower to keep moving. Like, you're not going to have like the same economic numbers, but you're not going to have people constantly pissed off because 10 years from now, an entire sector or industry is drying up and moving to another area because you decided that you were going to bring up a new technology, or it was cheaper over there to do it because it was a shitload of cheap labor. Like, that's real. That's very real.
That's pretty much where we're at right now, where they're talking about trying to bring manufacturing and other things back to America to give Americans jobs, which, again, this is what I was saying about the limbo. We don't know what they're actually going to do. We know a bunch of people voted expecting these things, but we don't know what's actually going to happen.
We know that industrialization is coming back not only to the United States, but it's coming back to North America writ large. Mexico has cheap labor. The United States has cheap energy. It's the biggest bilateral trade relationship in the world. The problem is Canada. Like, Canada is literally gone from parity GDP-wise with the United States per capita to being almost half. Like, they have stagnated for the last 10 years, if not actually gone into a various form of recession. And now, I don't know if Trump's actually going to do any of the tariffs or whatnot, but like, I'm trying to parcel this out because Trump's been like 51st state, yada, 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 tariff. I don't know what he's gaming for. I get that there's something that he's pushing for, but unironically, Trump could actually dissolve Canada if he actually pushes this hard enough. Now, I think it would destroy his faith and credibility if he ever had any at all, because he negotiated the original deal of USMCA, and now in his second term, 4 years later, he negotiated this in like 2018. It was signed in like 2019 and ratified. Like, your faith and credibility is gone. I wouldn't like no country. If you just go back on the same deals that you made in your last administration, is gonna trust you to fucking hold a damn thing ever again. So I'll be interested to see where that goes. But I mean, he's not a novice yet. He actually hasn't shown off what his gamer moves are. What I can say is that there's a lot of people that are telling me he's doing a bait and switch again, because apparently his administration was rolling out some really cringe shit the other day, but the news isn't talking about it because he's still doing the shit of like Sharpiegate, where it's like, hey, look at me, I'm being a jackass and saying a bunch of dumb shit. Please ignore my administrators over here that are actually doing something. Please don't talk about them. I would like you to not notice that. I don't know if he's doing that same thing now, but there was God damn it, I wish I remember, because I was in Tyler's server and he was like, it wasn't him talking about it, it was one of his friends, and he was just largely going along the lines of how do I say this? Largely going along the lines of like Project 2025 actually being incorporated into like mainstream policy, which I can't verify this. I don't know.
So I got to ask, you think that Trump could dissolve Canada? How would he go about doing that?
Just economically strangle them to death.
That's what they said. So Donald Trump said he was going to use economic force for China, like to acquire China or whatever, or China. Canada. It's late.
Okay.
Late. Don't you laugh at that, damn it. I'm over here. Listen, I already said in chat I wasn't wasted. I promise I'm not wasted. I have a freaking debilitating cough due to the cold, okay?
We live?
Yeah, we're live.
I think.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Just I make sure I don't throw out some slurs.
Okay.
Oh, man, look, it's been revealed. No, yeah, and I'm telling you guys, listen, I've been saying it. I will say it again and again and again and again. Ty, if you're not on TikTok, get on TikTok. The debates on there are
Isn't that
wild.
about to be knocked offline?
Stop. Don't
I'm
ruin
dead
my
serious.
dream.
No. Okay. Doghouse, move to YouTube Shorts. You'll be much happier.
No. Listen. All I'm gonna say, the reason why I bring this up is because it is wild. It's like the old days of Twitch politics. Let me tell you something, man. What I'm hearing from like normies, so that's like kind of like the normie space. Like, you get all sorts of normies in there. Is they're constantly saying like, yeah, we'll take Canada, we'll take Greenland too. And they're like, one thing I've noticed is Donald Trump is doing an interesting thing. He will throw something out in the water. Everyone will say it's a joke. And then when it starts to actually like take hold, like you see like a lot of the MAGA now going, hey, this actually sounds like a good idea. Trump's like, perfect. Pulls the reel and starts reeling it in and saying, yeah, that was my whole intent to begin with. But then when like MAGA's like, oh, it's a joke, it's a joke. This is the thing: is it always starts out as a joke until it's serious. So I think you're right. I think they're going to try to he's going to try to acquire Canada. He's going to try to economically. He's going to impose those tariffs. They're probably going to impose the tariffs right on back, and then it's going to be pretty crazy.
Well, now that Trudeau's resigned, they're probably going to fast track their elections, or they're going to do something weird. But I'd be very interested to see what Poilievre actually does in response.
Obligatory, it's Trudeau.
Well, Trudeau. So Trudeau resigned, and he said he's going to resign after their party picks a new leader. So I think, if I'm understanding that correctly,
He's stuck until the election.
Yeah. So it's going to be kind of like a temporary, like if Joe Biden were to step down and Kamala were to take his place, but then there's still going to be an election afterwards. That'll be kind of a big issue. So, what I'm hearing is that there apparently is a pretty far right conservative stirring in that particular politics. I don't know his name, what he stands for, but if he's pretty pro-Trump, Houston, we've got a problem. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
We saw that with Mexico, by the way. Mexico had a very favorable president prior to this year, actually. The new president is very feisty against Donald Trump, kind of like Trudeau. But the old president with Mexico, like, completely keeled over and was like, hey, not keeled over. He was constantly, like, just bending to Donald Trump, right? He was like, he
didn't bend over to Donald Trump. Trump gave him the best deal that Americans have ever offered Mexico. I care about one thing and one thing only, and that is immigration and drugs. Same thing, border security. Every time Washington has gone down to South America, or anywhere in South America, but particularly to Mexico, it's come with a fucking laundry list of shit, and the Mexicans always feel like Big Brother's always here to fucking punch us in the ass and then fucking take all of our shit. And so they never want to have a good relationship with us. AMLO was the one time where, like, I actually have to give a little credit to Trump on foreign policy here. Like, the best relationship that the United States and Mexico ever had was under Trump AMLO. And it was because they didn't want to get in each other's way. And it was wild because they hated each other.
Oh, Alex, we're live, by the way.
Hey, what's going on? Oh, hell, we got everybody coming in.
Just wanted to let you know we're live before.
Oh, my God.
Oh, that's okay.
Y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. Up in here.
Well,
Set
then
us
in
straight
order
on
to save
Canada.
my mind, I'm going to dip out, but it's good to see y'all.
Thanks
See you,
for
buddy.
coming through, Ancom.
Hey,
You
man.
have a good night.
I am here to answer all of your Canada-related questions and lead the resistance.
Okay.
Viva la resistance. You're not in
Vive
French
la
family, are you?
resistance.
I'm trying to think of some good Canada related questions. I mean, besides Deadpool. Oh, Shania Twain. Y'all give us Shania Twain.
Oh, she's still ours. What are you talking
Jesus
about?
Christ.
You just loaned her.
No. I'm just saying. Oh, I don't give a shit if you're loaning. You can loan her to me for an hour, 2 hours, a date. A week. I'm alright with her. I got to see her shake her ass up on stage one time, and I'm like,
Shut the fuck up.
she was on the thing dancing. I'm sorry.
I don't care.
Very well dancing. She was a very, very lovely, very awesome, very beautiful woman. And
All right, you're salvaging it a little bit at least.
Go watch the video for Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under with the famous
yeah.
red
Gretchen
dress.
Wilson, man. Are y'all talking about Gretchen Wilson or
Oh, Shania Twain.
Shania Twain.
Shania Twain? Sorry, Shania Twain. Shit, never mind. I'm sorry. I was thinking about. Never mind. Gretchen Wilson's the white trash version of Shania Twain. Sorry.
8 days, doghouse. 8 days.
Shania Twain is very classic.
days to
Very,
what?
very classic.
Bye TikTok, and I'm gonna laugh my ass off.
Seriously.
Listen.
Oh,
no.
TikTok's going away?
Let me explain
Wait.
something. I am beyond TikTok brain. For anybody who doesn't know what that means, let me explain. You have to think of
Don't
the
believe
most censored version of like any kind of platform. So you can't say drugs. You have to say D-rugs. And then you can't say like terrorists. You have to say the T
Can't say
group.
killed.
Yes, bro. You have to say, and that's why like so many times I'm having a conversation. I'm so like TikTok brained. When I come back on here, I'm like, wait, what can I say? I forgot what I can say. Like, it's wild, dude.
That would
I mean,
You can't say rape.
D.
It
Ruggs
is wild,
is
but
my
like,
rap name.
What were you gonna say?
So what aren't we allowed to say anymore?
Well,
Is
no,
anyone
but that,
allowed to say
on here,
Slur.
yeah, on TikTok it's
slurs?
pretty, like,
Okay, got
pretty
it. Slurs.
basic. Sorry. On Twitch it's pretty basic. On TikTok it's like super censored. There's rumors from what I'm understanding and hearing out there that it looks like Mark Cuban or O'Leary, one of these crazy people, are looking to purchase TikTok. But the problem with that is that it would take I would imagine it would take several months for them to be able to acquire TikTok, which would be crazy.
Ain't
And
gonna
then
be in the next couple weeks, so
shut up, Leezy.
just tuck it in
Listen,
the
don't
bed, give it
burst
a
my
kiss on the
bubble.
forehead, and say goodnight.
I imagine it would be Cuban as opposed to O'Leary. O'Leary, I don't think has the capital. He's rich, but I don't think he's like
Texans can't
billions
talk
rich.
about tourists in
I think
Texas.
it's like hundreds
yes.
of million rich.
I think it's more like, tell me about the rabbits, Lenny. Tell me about the rabbits.
That's exactly what's gonna happen to TikTok. It's getting its cradle rocked.
So yeah, as far as the Canadian election goes, so they prorogued Parliament, which means they've basically ended the session for the year, because the second they try and pass anything, they'll do a non-confidence vote on it, and that would collapse the government. So
Wait, did you say they paroled?
prorogued?
Oh, dude, I thought you said paroled. I was like, that's
No.
gangster shit when you let your
They
parliament
paroled
out.
everyone.
Paroled.
It's basically like Biden. They
I was
treated
like,
them
oh, shit.
like they're his son. No, so Parliament is done for now. And the Liberals are going to go through their leadership review. They're going to get a new leader in place, probably introduce them for a little bit. Second Parliament opens again, there's probably going to be a non-confidence vote, and then there'll be an election at that point. So expect something
Don't they
spring.
have one scheduled next year or early this year anyway?
Yeah, it would be coming. There's a mandatory date they'd have to call one by, but I have a feeling that the second it opens again, there's going to be a non-confidence vote, and it's going to come a little bit earlier.
So this is what I respect. I'm going to say this last bit, okay? This is what I respect about Twitch. I've said this before on TikTok. You guys are so much more educated than the people on TikTok. Just saying, okay?
Oh shit.
The people on TikTok are like, you take somebody off the street with a MAGA hat and be like, hey, can we debate? That's what TikTok is. Here, it's like, at least I go into a library. Okay, I'm not going to say like I'm going to like a scholarly library, but at least I'm going to somebody who's in the library wearing a MAGA hat that probably has a little bit more education on like the topics. I respect that. Just wanted to say
but
that.
it's because y'all don't like bring in that wino bottle of like Sterno for him to drink. You just can't grab anybody at the street and not give them a bottle of Sterno to drink. You know.
I would agree.
Yeah,
It is
lose
like
my
talking to a
mood.
drunk person on TikTok like that. I don't know. I'm telling you
Yeah,
guys,
that's
if you
sober.
love the old school like Twitch debates of politics, bro, enjoy the next 12 days or whatever, okay? And by the way, we'll find out in 2 days whether or not the Supreme Court is going to ban TikTok. By the way, Lee. So you got 2 more days to find out whether or not I can rub it in your face going, heh, heh.
I'm fairly confident that you're going to be crying in a week.
I'm not going to be crying. I'm just going to get upset that the one chance I had at fucking fame once again has been burst again, okay? Every time I boot up fucking Twitch, I end up failing, okay? Listen, I had my chance when I started the whole roundtable shit, and then that failed. I had a second coming, and that failed. This is my third time. I hit 2 milli clips, okay, on TikTok. And here I go again. Now on my own because of the freaking Supreme Court, bro. All right, I'm done ranting. Go ahead. Go back to Canada and their crazy
sucks to suck.
I like that. That's a good one. Must suck to suck. I'm gonna use that shit tomorrow when I'm working.
Is that the first time you've heard that, my man?
Fuck yeah, it is, dude. That's not one of the ones that. Yep.
I've been using that for years.
See, but I get to use it all day tomorrow because it's all the Sony Open is here, so I'm working the Sony Open, and so I get to watch all of those freaking knuckleheads and shit out there, and it's like, oh, and then I get to go see my sheriff buddies out there, and they're like, dude, what the fuck? And I'm like, I'm working here, dude, and they're like, dude, you're the only person I know that you call work riding around on a golf cart. I was like, I know, right? I'm like, hell yeah.
So
I'm living that best life.
Must suck to suck.
There's a word being thrown around that a lot of Americans apparently don't know, because I'm one of those Americans. Prorogued is to discontinue a session of Parliament or other legislative assembly without dissolving it. So we were wondering what proroguing means.
The pause button.
Because we don't have Parliament, so like we don't hear the word prorogued ever.
Shit, ours needed to not be paroled. They just need to have their shit revoked.
Yeah, it's basically
Our
the prime
Congress needs to
minister
just
goes,
get
"I would be Bach," and that's about it.
Okay.
take our entire Congress and put them back on lockdown.
Only this
Y'all
prime
go back
minister
on the
will
block.
not be back.
So how long do you think Mike Johnson's going to last as Speaker of the House?
I don't know. Hopefully a while.
What's a while? 2 months?
Not a chance.
I mean, he passed the vote, didn't he?
Yeah, but like from my understanding, he barely passed the vote only because they were like essentially they from what I read it as, and MAGA may not agree. MAGA was not happy about Mike Johnson, from my understanding, and but they understood that the only way that they're going to be able to not like delay Trump's inauguration is to get him into as a speakership. So they kind of just used him as a means to like push through Trump essentially. And also to try to get through like a few bills and stuff because without a speaker, it would essentially stall the House. So there's also some childish things too that were done by one of the Congress member's husband, Kamala Harris. Whenever they, like shake the Congress member's husband, shake his hand, and he was like, "No, thank you," or whatever. And Kamala's like, "Oh, okay, weird."
What? So
And
Danny's gone from Washington? Never would have guessed that. Never
Yeah,
would have
Hutchinson. Hutchinson's husband, I think.
Don't let strange women shake Mike Johnson.
No, not Mike Johnson. Kamala Harris, bro.
That was
Kamala
a good
Harris.
one. Don't let Kamala Harris shake Magic Johnson. So that's a good one.
So I heard she
I don't
had
trust Kamala Harris around Mike Johnson.
I heard she had a bit of an existential crisis after everything went down. Is she doing better?
I don't know about existential crisis. She probably looked relieved. She was like, "Great, I don't have to freaking worry about a 24-hour schedule." Like, shit. Donald Trump was chill too. He went out. He's been partying ever since he freaking won. Dude ain't stopped. He got Musk by his side trying to like you. Leaf, don't even act. You
Partying?
seen
No,
the
he's
wine-
been bitching like he's still a victim.
Bro, okay, wait,
I've
wait.
never
You can do
heard
two
a
things.
whinier ass bitch winner.
Wait, Leaf. You know, there's always that one person at the party that's like, the music could be better. I don't know. This party's kind of whack. That kind of thing, you know?
The oil has expired.
We won, but the last election was still stolen.
Bro, I had a
Boss,
whole
it's
ass
just
conversation.
drip, drip, drip. Water comes from
Bro.
heaven.
I had a whole debate.
Heaven?
Still, 4 years later, I had a debate with somebody today, just like literally probably an hour ago on TikTok. And we were debating, and I was like 1v8, bro. It was wild. It was 1v8. It was just me and 8 freaking MAGA, bro. And I was like Samurai Jack over there, like blocking their attacks. It was wild.
Oh, for
And they were
fuck's
like,
sake.
bro, they were asking me about like, oh, what do you think about the
8 days
people that
time.
are still, bro? Hey, man, look, I was like a ninja warrior, okay, and I gained nothing from it either, which was too stupid. Anyways,
How much have you had to drink? God damn.
absolutely nothing, but I'm pumped because I'm yeah. Anyways, last thing I'll say is, look, they're still going on about like, do you know how many people are locked up still? And I'm like, no, tell me how many people. And they're like, by doghouse, and I swear they hung up on me, bro. I'm like, exactly.
Not
You losers, you don't even know who's out there still.
I mean, wasn't Tim Pool getting wrecked by Luke Beasley not that long ago about whether Enrique Tarrio should have been arrested?
Yes.
When he straight up,
That
like in
level.
logs, it showed he would do it again and wants it to be done again.
Look,
Bro,
all I know is that in 2020 there was a lot of debate and anger over what could have been a corrupt, stolen election, and then the Democrats promised that there would be a fair election in 2024, and the Republicans won. So I believe them.
I'm not touching that one, a 20-foot pole.
I do love the general notion of, oh, hey, somehow the Democrats can rig an election when they're not in power and then fail to rig an election when they are. Like, that's some mental gymnastics.
Stop being reasonable.
They promised. They promised it would
Being
be
too
fair.
reasonable, bro. Being too reasonable. These people ain't reasonable. That's why I try telling people, I'm like, the difference in when MAGA like completely changed was that moment. That was the moment where things went haywire for MAGA. It was like at that point that I realized I actually said this. I was like, look, what determines whether or not you're MAGA is whether or not you fully condone everything that took place that day, or if you're willing to sit there and be like, yeah, I think some people did something and some people didn't. If you're willing to take that stance, you're not MAGA. But if you're one of the people that sits there and goes, yeah, everybody that's there was wrongfully convicted, you might be MAGA.
How
And I was
dare
like,
you tell me what I am? Make America great again.
Right,
Fuck you.
bro.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
think it's kind of like a show and no go. You know that guy that magically gets the prom date and he's got the prom queen, and then she's like, "Okay, let's go to the back of the car," and then muffin, no go. He's just like, "Oh shit," and then I think that just happens sometimes. I mean, it's like, you know, that I'm not sure
Bro.
which one is the prom date and which one's not, Democrat or Republican, but it's just like, you know, you get there, the prom
Bro.
day, she's hyped, then you can't perform, and then the next day you're like, "I'm sorry."
I know I'm fighting Ghost here, but it's kind of
Never
like
apologize.
they even threw this on me. I'm fighting Ghost right now when I'm saying this, but they were sitting there. They were like, "Oh, well, what did you think about Kamala Harris's bail fund?" I'm like, "Yeah, but Donald Trump wants to pardon these fools." Oh, well, that's different. I'm like, bro, a bail fund is them getting out of jail so that they can be convicted at a later time. A pardon means they can't be fucking touched, bro.
So
And they
I
were just
think
like, yeah.
MAGA was like they got their dream girlfriend in 2016 and they were happy together for like 4 years, and then the girlfriend broke up with them and it broke them, and they just became like the crazy ex. And somehow they've
Oh, it hurts
convinced
a
the
little bit.
girlfriend to get back together with them in 2024, and now they feel like they can do anything, because if they'll take them back after what they did before, then they'll take them back over anything.
Jesus
Dude,
Christ.
and then ask their psychotic girlfriend to move in with them as well, because we got Elon in there too. So that's like the psycho girlfriend that you just wish your girlfriend didn't have, but you're stuck with. I like this. This would make one hell of a sitcom.
Bro, can I ask y'all something? Because I know we're on like this
Rob.
this lib circle, jerk session. But let me ask you guys something. Doesn't it feel like MAGA has gone off the rails since they won? They're like, yo, we won and we want everything. And they're like, they've gone power
This whole
hungry, bro.
country, dude. This whole country's been off the rails for years.
Yeah, there's like, yeah, I gotta give. I give you that.
Like,
Yep.
I wish I could stop saying that, but like, dude, like, either y'all lost the plot or I did, and I'm just gonna say that I did, and I just can't play this game anymore. All right.
I'm just gonna say I'm one of the old people here, so it lost the plot after Reagan came into office, and the shit just went sideways after that. We, Jimmy Carter was like, "We need more nuke facilities so that we can get off oil." Everybody's like, "Oh, hell,
Bro,
here we are."
I'll just sit up here in Canada,
Here we are.
watch the shit go down. Just don't tariff graphic novels, and we cool.
I think you're on
Ooh,
track
yeah.
for our first invasion. Just saying.
Yeah, no shit.
Have you
Once
heard
again,
of the new push by MAGA now? They want to rename the Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America.
Nice.
I don't know how I feel about that. Is that pointless and doesn't do anything? Yes. Is it like Giga Chad rebranding? Also based.
No. Guess what the Mexican president said? She said, we're going to rename North America Americana Mexicana, bro. The Mexican president is not holding back at all, bro.
And all those maps are probably made in Mexico. So
true. Fucking true.
Damn, yeah, they're just gonna print them and send them up here. Oh, that's all right. My Spanish is decent. Mi español es así. I'm good. I can read this
Bro,
shit.
that's what I've been saying though, is like when Trump, everybody's like, oh, Mexico's just gonna bend their knee. I'm like, bro, this Mexican president is like laughing at Donald Trump. Every time Donald Trump says something, she's like, actually, that's not what actually happened. And then she's like, Donald Trump's like, I'm gonna impose 25% tariffs. The Mexican president's like, okay, we'll impose 25% tariffs back.
Well, actually.
Bro, it's hilarious watching these two go at it. I've become more involved with like, I guess, Western politics than I normally would like to, and it's just insane.
You're addicted.
The Gulf of Mexico is the new freedom fries. Yeah.
Some people like McDonald's, some people like Burger King, and some people just like Chick-fil-A. Okay, all right. I'm just eating Chick-fil-A while y'all are eating McDonald's. Okay.
Okay.
What about Wendy's?
Man, it must be nice to be from a first world country. He said Chick-fil-A, McDonald's.
I mean,
Burger King.
Hawaii is next to a first world nation. You're
It is. I mean, we're still dealing with Unca Bunca Burger and stuff. That's just hard. Harsh, man.
What the fuck kind of burger did you just say?
What did he say?
Big Kahuna
Oh,
burger.
lordy.
That is a tasty
Big Kahuna
burger.
That is the taste of my dick. Can I have some of your libation?
What you talking about? I got raccoon burgers from Roadkill, okay, down the road.
See,
They
that's why
sold
we
us
just need to, go ahead and make a sacrifice and give up Texas to Mexico and give up,
Please don't.
some
Please
of
don't.
those.
Yo,
You
Lee,
mean
give me a skill
return
learning, bro.
Texas?
Hey, you got some
Yes.
room, Lee?
Return Texas to Mexico. And then maybe it
Leith,
won't
Leith,
freeze in the winter.
Leith. I don't. Me no habla español, bro. Okay.
Better
Like,
learn
bro,
real quick. Adapt or die.
bro,
Yeah, no. You better bust out
bro,
that
bro.
bio.
Y'all
you
gonna
use
have
like
to
skill
yo,
issue,
yo,
get
I'm going to
good.
visit you, man.
Yo quiero babblefish.com.
Bro, could you imagine that though? Like, yo, wait, real talk. Texas is so deep red MAGA. Could you imagine if Mexico acquired Texas again? How many freaking people would be like lost? Oh my god.
Well, that's only in the city side. I mean, once you get out once
The
you get
rural
down
is
to
even
the
worse,
inside,
bro.
not
The
the half
rural is like
side.
terrible.
Yeah, but
That's
only
the
half
trailer
of it.
parks and shit, bro.
But it's only half. The southern half is, well, even the southern half, the Hispanic community is they're pretty much in love with them too right now. So, but I mean, at least they're still Spanish. MAGA
Yeah.
Spanish, I guess.
MAGA Spanish is
MAGA de
wild.
Español.
Bro, the MAGA Spanish is wild. Like, I'm serious. Like, how the fuck they go and vote against their own interests, bro? Like, oh my god. Do y'all know anything about the deportation shit that's going on?
Why are you
Is
telling
there
people that
any-
they're voting against their own interest?
Is there any
It's
Yeah,
not
like
deportation
only-
shit
maybe
going
what
on?
you think are their interests aren't
Yeah.
what they think are their interests.
Amazing.
Bro, they voted against their interests, bro. Yeah, if you
No,
know
they're
anything about
already
these
here.
They didn't vote against their interests.
They're closing the door behind them, not in front of them.
Dude, look,
Unironically
man.
based.
cousin Javier still gonna get across. It doesn't matter. This is more like just who was it? Is that the Mexican comedian? He said this is more like just what is that called? It's like a free
Gabriel
trip
Iglesias?
over. No, the other one. Damn,
George
he was the
Lopez?
older one. Yeah, Lopez. He said it's more like he's not really. It's not deportation. It's more like a you just your family
I
just
didn't know
kind of
him or Chris
in
Rock.
there, goes across the border, and then 3 weeks later, Javier is gonna be back. It's like, hey, is there quinceañera down in Juarez? Oh yeah. All right, that's okay. Hey, everybody, call INS. They'll come pick us up. We'll get a free trip. And you just go down and hang out with your cousins, and then you just come back later.
Bro, it's crazy though, because they're talking about like I don't
That's
want
how my in-laws got here.
That was legit
Bro,
Cheech and Chong up in smoke. Stop messing with me.
No, they're planning on going like essentially like on the worst case scenario, they're gonna do like basically door to door shit, and possibly stop and frisk, which is like I actually heard somebody on TikTok today like straight up was like, yeah, they should like go to like homeless shelters and start IDing people. I'm like, what, bro?
Yeah,
What
but that's not, dude. That's not gonna. Honestly, that's not how it's gonna work. What they're gonna do is the same thing they did when we used to do the INS sweeps. They're gonna go in. We're gonna run all the warrants down, and then they're gonna call the local PD and the sheriff, and say, "Hey, you guys got a list of people that you guys want first?" And they're gonna be like, "Oh, fuck yeah!" And then what we do is we go grab all the dirt
Well, yeah,
bags.
those are usually like the deportation orders. But the problem is that like this time around though, Tom Homan was specifically asked on News Nation, not Newsmax, News Nation. He was asked like the host was like, "Yo, you keep lumping in like criminals as people who cross the border illegally. So are those people categorized when you say that you're going to prioritize criminals first?" And he said, "Yeah, they're absolutely categorized in that
Yeah,
area."
I mean, technically they are. They broke the law coming in. I mean,
Well, so there's lengthening things there. So like there's a difference, right? Like when they get arrested, they then have to go in front of a judge, right? And then they end up getting like either a civil penalty or like a return to court or whatever. And then they have a deportation hearing and stuff like that. And
Yep.
typically after that deportation hearing, they'll be given whether they need to be
Stop.
well, that's kind of
No. I'm gonna interrupt this because I know where Doghouse is going. I'm gonna make this conversation all fuckload easier. It's really stupid to call people illegal whenever the system has an end around for being illegal. We encourage it. That is the problem with our system. We need to get out of the asylum treaty.
There is a
Like it's
okay.
like
there's a part of that.
Yet I try to deport
the-
one New Yorker to
here's the
Cuba,
thing.
and I'm the asshole.
Here's the
The
thing.
problem with this is that like when we had Remain in Mexico, for example, I had to look for this article. I was trying to find it again. From my understanding, we ended up like sending back like 600 or 600 or 60, one of those two, Americans back over to Mexico. And the other issue is during Trump's first administration, he tried to repeal DACA and was unsuccessful. and tried to remove temporary protection status for Haitians, and again, also unsuccessful. But we can look at like Stephen Miller's Muslim ban. You can look at Tom Homan with child separation. There's
So,
several bits and pieces.
Doghouse.
What was the name of the Haitian thing? What did you say? What were
Temporary protective status.
What was that first word?
Temporary.
Oh, okay. So what does that imply?
I mean, here's one of the things.
So
The
the history
biggest
on
thing
that
is it
one's
doesn't
fun.
have to be. They can administratively do it without the court system.
But that's the problem, though, is because they're all
Immigration,
afforded.
Customs and Border Patrol, immigration nationalization, they can do it without even. All they have to do is just take them, give them a number, ship them back wherever they come, and tell them show up at the embassy if you have a. I mean, if you here's your number, we've got you here. You say you're a refugee. You say, okay, show up in the embassy there, or we'll send you to a third one. I mean, the whole
remain in Mexico. But what I've understood is, and I've started to look into this because I wanted to see what the pros and cons of that were. And one of the major cons was that when they were sent back to their country, they had a hard time getting in touch with their immigration attorney here in the United States because of the fact they were so far away. So a lot of the argument is that they weren't really afforded that like proper representation, I think.
Yeah, but the problem is it comes down to paying for somebody else. If they want it bad enough, they have to pay to get the attorney. You have to pay to do the process. I mean, it's unfortunate and it's really hard, but if you want it bad enough, there you go. These are the steps to do it.
Yeah, so the issue is again, like if we're taking the assumption, I think most would agree that if you just had a deportation hearing and you were determined that you were to be deported, nobody would disagree. Like, hey, you had a deportation hearing, sure, that makes sense. And even to some degree, like criminals. But even then, the issue is whether or not there's an ICE detainer, and you have issues with like sanctuary cities, which sometimes don't comply with ICE
And
detainers.
that's where I was
Well,
gonna
I mean, but
go.
the thing
That's
is-
where I was going, Doghouse. So follow my
Yeah,
logic.
but even
Let's say here in the 5th largest economy on the planet, you know, we have a really good agricultural industry and, you know, a lot of jobs to go around. And if you don't say, you know, want to end up in this particular problem, you just come on over to California and, you know, become one of us. As we give Texas back to
Just
Mexico.
slowly turn into
this is
into California red. Let's fucking go.
No. But here's the issue with this is that Tom Homan has already openly stated that if any mayor were to get in his way, and I believe even governor, that he would look to seek to try to arrest them under the idea of harboring fugitives.
Yeah, I mean,
So
technically, he has the ability to do it.
we'll see. I'm pretty
there.
certain that government officials have immunity from some of that, but we'll see. I don't know how you can claim that because somebody. I'd love to hear the legal argument behind somebody being within their city and somehow that is equivalent to harboring a fugitive.
Oh
It just
no, I
doesn't
mean
make
it's
any
not.
sense.
Okay, hold on. There's kind of two issues
It's-
here. One is doing it.
Go ahead.
They can do it. I mean, they can fight it in the courts afterwards. Okay, but if a federal agent decides to show up at a governor or mayor's office with a set of handcuffs, only two things are going to happen: either the state police, if it's the governor, are going to try to stop him, or if it's a mayor, the city cops are going to try to stop him. But if a federal agent shows up and it's like, hey, guess what? Because I mean, the same issue happened with Marion Barry. They literally showed up at his office. If you don't know who Marion Barry was, he was the cocaine mayor for Houston.
Was it in Chicago?
One of my favorite. Oh no, DC.
That was DC.
He was one of my favorite. I loved him. Got caught. DEA arrested his ass. Came in the office, threw the shit on him, threw his ass in prison. Came back out, got reelected, and then finally ended up as a what are they called? What are the ward guys in Chicago? The alderman. So I mean, you can technically do it, and then you just fight it out in court after. I mean, he can make bail.
This is terrible though, right? Like, I mean, this is the thing is like the fact that we have like the federal government coming in and be like, yeah, we're gonna come in and we're gonna arrest the mayor and or the governor, and because y'all are quote unquote harboring a fugitive via their sanctuary city policies.
Well, I mean,
Fucking
you
based
know,
as hell.
I mean, I hate to say it, but that's our system. I mean, it's the exact same thing that happened when the National Guard for like Katrina. The Louisiana National Guard was on Title 10 federal orders, and the entire National Guard decided they no longer wanted to be in Iraq because they're from Louisiana. And California, New Mexico, Texas decided, hey, guess what? We've got our own stuff to deal with. we don't want to go to Iraq. And I mean, governors literally saying, well, I'm not going to allow, National Guard members to be federalized. And what ended up happening was is that it came down. One, the court system said, well, you can't do it. And the other one was the president said, well, listen, if they don't show up, then what we're going to do is we can just court martial the shit out of everybody, throw all of them in prison. And the army has the prison space to be able to do it. And if any of you get in the way, not only will the generals go to jail, but so can the governors. I mean, dude, this is our political system at its finest. It's a pendulum.
But there is this, what is it? Is it called, Ty, you know this one, like what, federalism or whatever it is? The idea that the state governments operate within their own confines or something, like separate of the federal government.
It
But like
is federalism. The problem is that they're supposed to check each other. And the issue is that this is why I'm actually a Unitarian when it comes to this conversation. They're not equipped to check each other. You want something on the same power scaling that can check each other. So for the federal government, you don't use the state governments to check them. It's stupid because the moment the states actually get powerful enough to tell the federal government to fuck off, California's leaving the country, and then Texas right after them. Straight up.
Yep.
We don't want that shit.
Everyone
So
loved
what it
federal
comes down
law
to,
when Roe versus Wade was in place.
if you legitimately want a balance of power within federalism, what you need to do is you need the federal part of the government to be checking itself. And the most important part, and this is why I scream bloody murder at conservatives, because they're not really conservative, is that you need to be worried about the balance of power between executive, judicial, and legislative. But we're not going to talk about that because we got to make the states more powerful because they're fucking retards. Anyway, I digress. What I'm trying to get at is this. I largely personally believe in Unitarianism. The Fed should have the ability to come into the state governments and shove a dick right up their ass and say, you're not doing what we're... No, I'm dead serious. You're not doing what we've outlined within the Constitution. We have the right. We will arrest you. A great example of this actually was from last year with Greg Abbott and his shit where he's just like, oh, I'm going to have my own fucking federal or my own state border policy because the feds, I don't agree with the feds. Fucking, if I was in Joe Biden's shoes, like I would have had a hard time not ordering the 1st Marine Division down to Austin and fucking punching him in the face. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Like straight up, you have every justification to do it. It's treason. The states do not have the ability to make immigration policy. And if they want to leave, they can fucking leave.
I'm gonna go. All right, can I play the opposite side of this one? Do you mind if I play the opposite side of this one? Okay. So to a point, yes. But then we have this wonderful thing called the legalization of marijuana. And when the legalization of marijuana came about in a certain place where we'll call it Fantasylandia, just for shits and giggles. So Fantasylandia decided that they wanted to legalize drugs. Now the problem is that the federal government, also known as the Big Bad Wolf, said, hey, guess what? You guys can't do this. And then Fantasylandia said, oh, what? Really? Watch this shit. And then Little Red Riding Hood, who was also known as all of the law enforcement in all of California, who were at that time, because the DEA, they're a big bad wolf, but only on paper, because they're only actually about 3 foot tall and about 2.5 feet wide. So the Fed said, well, wait a minute. You guys are supposed to be here to help us because we double badged all of your sheriffs and all your cops and everything. And the state of California said, well, guess what? If any of you decide to help the federal government in any way, shape, or form to close down these marijuana places that we have, you're going to go to jail. And so all the cops were like, I like the $40 an hour of Fed money that I have, but I also like not getting bum humped in prison. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit here. I'm going to let the feds do whatever they want for their thing. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to do traffic control. And so all of the cops stayed outside and all the local cops are just like, come on, move along. Oh, red light, keep going. And so that's what ended up happening because the law enforcement apparatus, it's no federal side, is not big enough to handle any of it. And so what they do is they come to local cops like they do here with immigration and customs, and they double badge a whole bunch of us because we have the numbers in the local area and the knowledge of what the local area is. The hard part is that when the local cops decide to say, I'm not going to play because of X, Y, or Z, that's what ended up happening with the DEA and So what ended up happening with the FBI and all the ones that were going after the marijuana grows and all the stuff in California was they're like, we've got 50 DEA agents that we can pull now. What are we going to do? And they're like, honestly, we'll go after this one, even though we know there's 4 more next door to it. And we'll just, I mean, they're all pretty much just doing it just to steal the free cash. But that's just,
We're here to
that's
chew
just-
bubble gum and kick ass. That's what we're doing. Okay.
it's just civil forfeiture. That was all they were doing.
Yeah,
And
for
don't get me
me,
wrong, I did like the Humvee that we got a Hummer that we got to drive around the island with. So we got caught with the sheriff's sticker on the side of a fucking drug dealer's Hummer, and we were just using gas. Hey, no, you can't leave gas. It'll erode the gas tank. So you just drive it around the island a couple times because it's a Hummer.
it's hilarious. No,
Yeah.
I mean, like the thing is like to me, I just think it's crazy though to see like the idea that we would even have like potential like door-to-door raids. I don't know. I think this whole entire immigration policy is just like insane when you think about it. It's like of all the things you're gonna do this, and it's like, but then again, who knows? Because right now they're like all the talk is about apparently taking over freaking Greenland, Canada, and Panama Canal, which is
And getting rid of
think,
TikTok.
honestly,
crazy.
dude, I think what we're gonna do
TikTok,
is
Leafy, asshole.
Thank
We're
you,
gonna
Joe
play-
Biden. Thanks for getting rid of TikTok. Appreciate it, buddy.
Hey,
I don't know.
listen. You know what? If there's one thing that'll make me like happy about Trump is that he's actually like pro TikTok. So fuck it, okay? That's the one thing that I'll give Trump. Okay, fuck it, bro. All right, fuck this shit.
Full send on Trump for the TikTok. Got it.
Honestly, I think what's going to happen is we're going to do the same thing that we do in law enforcement with homeless and playing homeless ping pong. What we're going to do is play immigration ping pong. And what that is the states that are extremely pro on it are going to be the ones that are going to be hammering the shit out of all of the people. So Texas is going to hammer the hell out of people. And then you're going to go to other states which are less kind of like lackadaisical on it. And all they're really doing is they're just going to shift the population. We do the same thing in most local cities do it. If you want to drop your, what is it called? The realty, what the hell is that shit called for the
license or
no,
license?
the money for the real estate values. You want to drop the real estate values.
Oh, property tax.
Real estate value. Well, it comes with property tax too. So what you do is you have 10 districts, 1 through 10, and what you do is you go to I buy an office in the neighborhood so that I can get.
This shit sound like Hunger Games. Chill out.
No, I mean, dude, this is your local law enforcement 101. This is how it works. So I get an office, I go to the neighborhood board in 5.
I'm just saying, I don't volunteer as tribute. All right.
And then what happens is those 5 districts, there's constantly one guy saying, you guys need to, the homeless. But what you do is you don't say anything in District 6. So that what ends up happening is PD comes in, they sweep out the homeless, and there's only one place for those people to go. So all the homeless get pushed into one district, and that district's property value starts to drop. And so what ends up happening is you can go in and just gentrify the shit out of it real easy. It's guerrilla realty. And I've sat there and watched them do it at the neighborhood boards, and it's sad, but you do the exact same thing with the immigration system. You flood the hell out, because that's what already happened with the busing. They flooded Chicago, they flooded Denver, they flooded New York, they flooded LA.
And it was wild to me, man. They did that shit, and then we're like, why are y'all funding immigrants? It's like, bro, y'all done flooded the shit out of the cities. No duh, they had to fucking fund this shit, bro.
Well, but dude, that's the way you play the game. We have a mercantile republic. Money and governance sit together. If you can find a way we can separate out the two until then, every time the governance needs, they're going to play with the money. And every time the money needs, they're going to play with the government. That's just how you play it.
All right.
He's not
fine,
wrong.
Whatever. On a level, he is wrong. It's a very simple rule, folks. It's not about being a mercantile republic. It's about the people who show up actually make the fucking decisions in this country. And the problem is people keep bitching and moaning because they're not actually showing up, but they still want things to actually work out for them. That's not how it fucking works. That's why MAGA's been pissed off for fucking 20 years. That's why they've slowly been ratcheting it up to the Tea Party, to MAGA, and whatever the fuck else is going to come next. That's why the crazy left is doing its crazy shit. It's because they just don't get the fucking message. It's not enough to fucking vote. It's not enough just to sit there and bitch on fucking Twitter. Sorry, folks. That actually really doesn't do shit. You got to come out. You got to put some money behind it. You better be knocking on some fucking doors, or God forbid, you better have a phone conversation with somebody. Or sorry, you better have a phone number to actually talk to an elected representative and say, hey, look, this is what I'm after. What is it going to take to get us there? And if you're not having that conversation, you ain't doing jack shit.
Ty, my elected representative is Colin Allred and not Ted Cruz.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you're
For reference,
you're not wrong,
Colin
Ty. You're
Allred.
absolutely right. The problem is, the vast majority of people don't want it hard. They want it. They want
Yeah,
to.
they want it easy, and like
Of
this is where I'm an old school Republican. This is why I want the old school Republican Party back. Tell them to fucking pound sand. If you aren't willing to put in the work, no one gives a fuck about you. That is the number one rule in this country. If you aren't willing to try, no one is going to give a damn. So you can bitch and you can moan and you can say people are fucking classist or racist or whatever the hell you want. No one cares. No one gives a fuck if all you do is sit around and bitch all day.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But here's the thing. The problem with it is this. Nobody cares until that, halfway house for pedophiles is right next door to them, and then they care. Nobody cares unless the crack house is right there.
Fucking NIMBYism. Let's go.
Okay, but on that point, though, right?
That's just, nobody cares until it becomes an issue.
But
Yeah,
those issues are local, right? And that's what you have to
all local.
look at and say your power to influence is never more stronger than at the municipal level. You have direct access to the city councils. You can elect sheriffs down there, which blows my fucking mind. Like you're voting for school boards, all of these things. You have a voice. Your vote is diluted way less than anywhere else. They're going to listen to you. Your members of your community are going to recognize you when you stand up in front of the council, and you're going to be able to affect change on policies that have a far more dramatic impact on your day-to-day life than anything you're going to see definitely at the federal level and far more than at the state level.
Giga-based. Thank you, Canada, for making a great point. Here's something that blows my mind, dude. But it's true, and it happens. We don't just elect sheriffs. We elect fucking judges.
Blows my mind.
Oh my God. What the fuck? You let people who are qualified in no legal matters, in no administration, to make legal decisions, to make representative decisions on who's going to enforce the laws. Holy shit. Okay.
To be clear,
I am not for elected bureaucrats. I am for appointed bureaucrats. You judge the people responsible by the people you elect who actually appoint. Right?
Yeah, you're worried about MAGA picking your president. MAGA is picking who's going to adjudicate
local judges and fucking sheriffs.
To be clear, though, I think judges do have to have some kind of legal qualifications, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I believe there are still certain stipulations.
You can nominate anyone to the Supreme Court. You can literally run...
the Supreme Court, okay.
I'm going down the list. You can nominate anyone to the Supreme Court. As far as I'm aware, at least in my state, you can be nominated to the state Supreme Court, and you don't have to have a fucking law degree. You can run for a judge's seat, and I don't believe you have to have a law degree for that. Just got to get people to vote for you. And here's the scary part for me personally. Most people never check on any of who these people are. They just care if they have a D or an R next to their name.
Look, all you got to do.
Okay, hold on, real quick.
Watch
I have to interject. So for the Texas Supreme Court, a person must meet the following qualifications: be a citizen of the United States, be at least 35 years old. And by the way, I'm not Rob Norris, so I am using AI. Just letting you know, it's Google AI or whatever, because it was the first thing that popped up. So anyways, take it for what it's worth. Be at least 35 years old, but no more than 75 years old. Be licensed to practice law in Texas and have practiced law for at least 10 years, or have been a lawyer and a judge of a court of record together for at least 10 years. So you do have to have some kind of law experience, at least for the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but
For
I saw
Texas.
I saw this
Right.
documentary called Suits, where this guy totally pretended to have a
Fuck you,
law
just
degree,
fucking shut
and
up,
he was like
Rabbit.
practicing law for like years before anyone ever caught him, and they almost didn't catch him at all.
Yeah,
Dude,
but I'm
why
pretty
did
certain
you just tell
practicing
him
without
out?
law.
He took my law school. Man, he took the LSAT. Why'd you let him out? That's how I got into LSAT. Damn, you just rolled me right down the river for them. Thank you, Wombat.
Yeah, speaking of LSAT, I'm
It's a good
also
TV
like
show.
speaking of LSAT, I'm looking at possibly going into tax law, and that shit can get fucked. I'm over here like, so my GPA is like a 2.5, and for anyone who's unaware of how law schools work, you need like at least a 3.0 and have like a mediocre LSAT score. So right now, in order for me to get accepted into law school, for anybody who's unaware, I essentially have to get like a 95 to a 99 on my LSAT to be accepted into any law school. I can probably go to like some kind of mediocre, like online stupid like law school, but if I want to get to like a halfway reputable law school, I need to have like pretty much a 95 to 99 just because of how low my GPA is.
Have you
Can't
looked
So,
just
into
retake
American Samoa, the
law.
law school?
boy,
of
this
American
man's
Samoa?
talking. This man's
Have
talking
you looked
about
at the American
freaking
Samoa
Better
law
Call
school?
Saul, bro. Chill. Better Call
Hey, what?
Saul, my man.
Dude, that's my people. That's my damn dude.
That's
I
my
went there
people.
yesterday. I saw more. I'm just saying, and you're right. It is better
That's-
to call Saul
I was
because
gonna say, don't pretend like it's
I
a
got a
real law school. 'Cause
T-shirt.
if it is, I swear to God.
No, American Samoa Community College and now college is real. So is Western Samoa, but it's not a law school. They
Okay,
do
that's
have
what I
two
thought.
colleges there, so it's there. It's just not that one. But you go down there, maybe you'll be the one to start it, and then I can go to American Samoa Law School.
Bro, I hate the education system so much, especially with their like. It's like I've been working full time like since I was like 18. I've been working like full time, busting my ass. Like moved out of my parents' house at 19, and going to school at the same time. And when I've asked multiple people at like colleges, I'm like, hey, can y'all like consider when I want to go to my master's? Because my GPA shit. I was like, hey, when I go to my master's degree, can y'all consider my my entire situation? They're like, no, if your GPA is not a certain height, we're not going to accept you. I'm like, but I've been working full time. Like I can show you my resume that is quite impressive. Yet that's not. They're like, nope, we want to see a 3.0 GPA. I'm like, all right, cool. So it's fucking insane. And I've seen also the same in the general career field where like people are like, if you don't have a bachelor's degree, I don't care that you got 7 years of work experience, but if you don't have the bachelor's degree, we're not gonna hire you. I'm like, but I've got 7 years of experience and I'm graduating next May. Literally had this happen this like about a week ago. They were like, oh, we know you're gonna graduate in May, but you don't have the bachelor's degree, so we're not gonna consider you. I'm like,
Well, don't worry. By the
whatever,
time you
dude.
graduate, someone with an H-1B will show up and take that job from you.
Or well, no, I was gonna say maybe a TikToker will show up, but
So
Well,
here's
you have to look at some
posted
places,
the judges
especially
without
union places.
justice of the pieces and lay judges can be judges. That's an article down there from Columbia Law Review, I think, that tells you which like the process of the lay judges and the justice of the pieces who could be practicing judges without having a law degree. So it's a little article that's in there.
aren't justice of the pieces like they're pretty like just administrative, and it doesn't have a whole lot to do with like any serious type of like. I wouldn't mind that. Like that's fine. Like if you want to put somebody in charge of marriages, for example, I ain't worried about that. But if you're talking about somebody that's like in charge of like a criminal case, like that's
It
pretty
depends on the
iffy.
Who was
state.
that one chick that fucking Mike Huckabee put up because she refused to issue a marriage license? And was it Tennessee?
Sarah Huckabee?
No, it wasn't
Oh, you
Sarah
talking
Huckabee.
about the
Mike
old
Huckabee
She
picture?
put her
refused
up
to
for a
do
long
her
time.
duties.
Wait,
yeah.
she wouldn't let the two gay people get married? Was that the
Yeah,
one?
you don't remember that? I mean,
Yeah, I
this
do
is like back in
remember.
like 2010, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, Tennessee's going back
Imagine.
after gay people, by the way. Not even kidding you, not even bullshitting you. They're trying
Well,
to
no shit.
basically
They tied themselves to the trans movement and then wondered why they were getting attacked. It's not exactly rocket science.
they're going after them saying that like I guess because in Obergefell, apparently it didn't say that like it said that they couldn't force religious people or something to or religious pastors to marry a gay couple. And so they passed a law saying that or whatever. It's weird. Like they basically
Why is
I don't
that
know.
weird?
All
It
it
sounds like it's
is.
just a
I
state
forgot the exact.
system
I
agree.
like Like
It
All it
sounds
is
like
is
a
a
state that doesn't agree with federal law and has decided to put some laws locally so that they don't have to comply or help federal agents and or enforce federal law within their land.
We've been
And
talking about
they
this for
just
2
do their own thing.
years. Like what it is that this is an incident that is going to take this back to the Supreme Court, and they're going to overturn it again.
That's my thought. They're trying. That's what they're trying to do. It's just insane to me.
It's
But it's
heteronormative sanctuary states.
true. You know what? That's true, bro. You're talking about sanctuary cities. Yo, it's just like when MAGA's like, we need to get rid of the establishment. Meanwhile, they're like voting in an establishment president. But like at
I
what
mean,
point?
dude, this is how you got to do it until you get congressmen and senators and House members that are willing to do their shit other than just collect a paycheck. I mean, they make the most money when they do next to nothing. I mean, it's like, well, we'll just keep pushing this along, pushing along. I mean,
Why is that?
why? Because people are lazy, because nobody really cares truly except for like one or two issues. So it's either pro-gun or pro-abortion or pro-this or pro-that. Nobody ever looks at the little tiny ones. And
No, what it is, and it's way simpler than this. I'm going to Occam's razor
Okay.
this shit for you real quick. The people who actually write the checks are generally pretty happy with the way things are. Because right now, what we're seeing, and this is one of the reasons why I don't mind the populist movement, it's just I wish they had some fucking intelligence, is that if you're in part of the in crew, if you have got a career or part of the institutions that make you either a bunch of money or a bunch of security, to where it's like, hey, you know what? You know you've got good health insurance, and you know that your job's relatively secure, and yada, 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 or, you're making 6 figures a year. Yeah, you're 100% okay with the way things are, and you probably don't give a flying fuck what's going on. But if you're not in that crew, oh fuck no. You are on the you don't have the security. You're about to freak the fuck out all the time. You want to tear this whole system limb from limb. And the problem is, like straight up, easy peasy lemon squeezy. This is the problem in this conversation for all of America. If you're part of the upper echelon where you are doing okay, you don't have a clue how bad people who aren't in that echelon feel. 90% of them have no idea. And I don't know how it is. It's not like they're not their friends and their neighbors and their coworkers, but they are. And then on the other side of that is the people who are in the lower echelon are largely there of their own consequence. They distrust the institutions. They want to bitch and moan and scream about everything, but they actually are not willing to put up anything that would actually be an actor of good faith. And I'm going to be 100% honest with this, and I'll say it on fucking cam. The biggest problem with the Rob Noor, Phil KOE types is not that they're just bad fucking people.
Oh shit!
It's what it comes down to it is that they will bitch and they will moan and they will scream about how bad things are, but they won't actually put in the skin to do anything about it, except for, maybe offhand running for office in which they're never going to win because no one gives a fuck. Like, oh, you bitch and moan on the internet? That's cool, dude. I'm not voting for you. No shit, Rob Noor lost his ass.
Oh fuck! It's this guy. This guy from
And then Osiris pulls up. That's what I'm talking about.
Hey Osiris, you excited? Osiris, you excited for all that snow coming up there in Dallas?
I don't know what snow is. I don't know what y'all talking about. What does that mean? What is snow?
Trade you snow for fire. We got plenty.
Bro.
What's the baby count in the household right now? I haven't checked in for a while.
He's got Tyreek Hill numbers.
That's something we decreasing. We're down to 2. We're down to 2. We good.
Woohoo!
What'd you do? Drown him in the toilet?
That's what I was gonna say. How are you down to 2, bro?
I've seen some shit going on in the news about stuff like that.
We don't
Damn.
talk about how the numbers become numbers, right?
Oh, that's all right. No, you're right. Sure enough.
We capitalists. We capitalists.
If you need to run, I got a couple islands in the Pacific you can run to. Couple with no extradition.
Hey, so Lethe, can you free my boy Paul, please?
What about Paul? No, I told his ass stay off the internet. He's been warned.
Why would you do that, man?
Because he knows better.
Free my boy Paul, man. Just let him go for one day, okay? Just give him like a hall pass or something, man.
Wait.
Hall pass.
What did Paul do now?
Pissed off Lethe. The Chicago Bears lost, and so he's been in like a forever turmoil, and he's like, crying and everything. Lethe told him that he should just retire, okay? And then he had no chance and he just went off on him, bro. It was
I
wild.
told him to hang it up, and then like right before New Year's, he was like, you know what, I'm gonna stop streaming, and you know, he can't handle it. So I just told him, you know, that's for the best, and if I see him on again, there's gonna be hell to pay.
Mm.
So see, free my boy Lethy, or free my boy Paul, not Lethy. Lethy, you know, Lethy can do what he can do.
I
Okay,
told
he's
him I
already talking
wasn't
about
going anywhere. I already warned his ass.
Hey,
I'm
here's
not
like
going
Lethy's coming
anywhere.
after me. See, listen, there's something. Oh, see, Lethy's what he's trying to do. He's doing the Elon Musk route, right? Where he's like, look, I'm just gonna have all my competitors drop out. See, that's why he wants me to get rid of. He wants TikTok to fail because he wants me to like. It's okay. TikTok's just gonna bring me over here, bro. Okay, so let TikTok fail. I got you. I'm gonna be over here. I'll be your wildest competitor, Lethy.
I mean,
I'll
that's
take it
perfectly
all.
fine. I mean, that's what I'm looking for, some good, healthy competition. That's what the market likes. So, you know.
I don't know though. Twitch is kind of like going a little crazy. Okay,
We can't have
So
people from a state that doesn't understand pizza sandwiches or football running amok on Twitch. We just can't have it.
did you say pizza's a
Wait, what's
sandwich?
a pizza sandwich?
I
Like
said
a
pizza,
sub?
sandwich, or sandwiches or football. If they don't
Oh,
know
okay.
any of those, if the best they can produce in that entire state is a hot dog, we can do better.
But a hot dog is a sandwich,
Hot
bro.
dogs are delicious.
Oh no. Jeez.
Wait, we talking about Chicago?
Yeah, we're talking about. See, Alex
Oh
knows.
yeah, dude. Nah, dude. Wait. No, yeah, dude. I'm sorry. I saw
Wait,
them
wait,
kick
wait,
a
wait.
fucking dude out of a
Texans are kicking
goddamn
ass. What are you talking
Well,
about?
dog
Texans are in the
place.
playoffs, bro.
Dude, they kicked the dude out of a hot dog place because he asked for fucking ketchup, and the dude literally threw the money back in his face and told him to get
What
out.
did Obama say? What did Obama say? Obama said
why
ketchup
eat
is
a
for
hot dog if you're
Oh,
not?
you
Obama
sound
said
like
ketchup
super
is for
far away.
kids.
You sound super far away, Osiris.
Oh no.
Your mic is just too high
I mean,
quality for us.
I know.
He's
I'm sorry.
6
Hold
feet
on.
from the edge, and he's thinking that 6 feet. Anyways, so no, but hey, let me tell you something about Texas football, bro. Okay, Texans are in the freaking playoffs, bro. All right, they don't need no Tank Dell with his all twisted ACL, MCL, everything that he done busted up. All right, but they don't need that. It's all right. We got everybody we need. All right, so Texans are gonna go all the way to the Super Bowl. All right.
Here we
No, I
go.
hope I didn't jinx it. But anyways, and as far as sandwiches go, bro, we got the best brisket sandwich you could ever ask for. Okay, and pizzas, bro, all you need is some Papa John's. We good.
I'm not going to say a word about
Oh,
food in
dude. All right,
Texas.
I'm
Food in
gonna follow
Texas
you
is
on that.
good.
John, really, Papa John's. Goddamn.
Food in
Look,
Texas
I
is
can't, bro. I can't.
A1.
I mean, look, I can't really brag on the pizza, but I can damn well try. Okay, look, pizza's pretty good down here. All right.
He said I could try.
The only
Anyway.
professionals from Texas going to the Super Bowl are the prostitutes.
Damn.
What?
But
What
at
the
least
fuck
most
did
of them are good
Osiris just
looking.
say? Wait a minute.
At least most of them are
Osiris
good
has been to.
looking.
Was it Osiris? You're familiar with Houston, right?
I mean, no, I know a little bit. I ain't familiar, but I know a little bit.
Do you know what what Bissonnette is? Like isn't Bissonnette like where all the
Something like
He
very
ain't
high.
past the bar, but he knows a little bit.
Something like
Never mind.
You know,
No, it's a pretty like it's kind of like a street that's got a lot of like some of that activity going on. Not that I know this personally. I'm just from Houston. I know that there's a lot of that.
Something like Harry Hines. It's a strip. Get it?
Yeah, it's kind of like a street that's known for that kind of shit.
Prepado, Peta Chicas.
But the funny thing is like anytime they do a raid on that like particular street, they just go over to the next street.
I'm
It's
just
just
turning Osiris up. That's what we're going to do. Just turn Osiris up.
Hey, let's turn up.
There
turn
we
up for
go.
what?
So apparently 100,000 people have been evacuated from LA, well, Hollywood, as the wildfires have gone even crazier.
Oh wait, they up in Hollywood now? Like in the hills?
It started in Hollywood, and then the wind just kind of went nuts. So,
Hey, so which actors are you hoping don't make it out? I'm just saying.
Son of a bitch.
I'm already good. So like, I guess my karma on this planet is solid, and James Woods is fucked. So we're good.
I see what you did there. Wildfire, James Woods. I got what you meant. But look, here's my thing. If y'all are expecting any kind of like disaster relief coming in, you can just like kiss that goodbye. Donald Trump ain't gonna bring that for you guys. Just heads up. Donald Trump said "F you guys." He already called. He called Gavin Newsom today. Gavin Newsom. By the way, you can find that on my TikTok. I did a whole video on all the disaster relief that Donald Trump denied. Don't let Lethy try to deny you, okay, the freedom to come to TikTok while it's available still. You can check it out. The link below. Doghouse Show at TikTok, okay? Check it out. We got 12 more days, and then we're gonna be renewed for another 4 more years. Okay. Anyways, go ahead, Lethie. Sorry, I had to do my selfish plug.
Oh
You
no,
want to be an asshole and talk about TikTok?
Jesus.
Plugging for real.
he acts like I'm the one
No,
that did it.
Osiris.
It's just like James Woods. As long as my karma is good, things that I want to happen when it doesn't regard an election. So TikTok's gonna go the way of the dinosaur. James Woods is
Hey,
homeless.
don't wish into existence, bro. The Supreme Court's gonna save us. Okay. They're conservative. Trump said that they're gonna. Trump said he likes TikTok, which means that the conservative majority is totally hearing Donald Trump, which means the conservative majority is gonna side with Donald Trump, and they're gonna allow TikTok to remain. Okay, that's what I'm gonna say.
No, you know what? Just from that, said they're dead. They're so dead. Yeah, TikTok's dead. I'm sorry, you didn't do that. That whole speech right there was like I'm on the edge already, and I'm about to fall over with.
He's
Yeah,
one step closer to
Harvard.
the edge.
Cope.
I'm gonna go ahead
It's
and have
gonna
it.
be
Wait,
okay.
let me do this.
Cope.
In the name of the Spirit, Santo Des Padre, go with God, my son. There you go.
No, no, no. Y'all
It
suck.
just got Reddit's last rights. What's good?
Yeah, no shit. Va con Dios, mi
Take all
amigo.
your
Va
videos.
con Dios. Shoes.
Y'all got me choking over here, bro.
Ooh. Just like what's the last breaths that TikTok is gonna be taking. It's gonna choke on those.
Lethe. I swear to God, when TikTok stays alive, I'm gonna come back up in here, and I am gonna brag straight up that TikTok is still around. Okay.
It's okay. You can come in here and cry when it goes away.
You can have that victory if you want it. All right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm just
Like,
looking
look,
out
I'm
for the
just
best
saying-
interest of Americans, and I would like for our media literacy to go up, for our attention spans to be better, and TikTok is not doing either of those.
We
so.
still got YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels. Don't you count them out. All right. Look, you still got short attention spans out there.
I was
Hey,
gonna say I don't know if that really. YouTube, Facebook,
Hey.
Instagram, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look, let's be real. Like our attention span, and I know that too, and that's one of the reasons why when I do my TikToks, I try to get the intro in real quick. But listen, our attention span is shot. Okay, like ever since because of social media, we don't got nothing but like 2 seconds of attention span. And if it's
Guys,
not,
I'm gonna speak truth to power one more time. Our
Who's powerful?
attention span was never long. Okay, it's a romanticized dream that we've had for fucking ever. Americans never gave that much of a shit anyway. Ask how many people who were back in the 40s who actually listened to the full fireside chat that FDR did. Guarantee fucking to you, 90% of the time they weren't fucking there for that shit.
True.
I don't know. If I talked to my grandpappy, he would have told me about the entire Roosevelt speech of
Yeah.
5 days ago.
They
And,
fills things
and what was it?
and it's beautiful.
What was that? Today will be the day that will live in infamy. I don't know the rest because my attention span is too short, but you know what I'm talking about.
Motherfucker.
proving the point.
Nah, listen.
Jesus
I'm
Christ.
just too lazy to read the rest. Okay, but I know it's something about today will be a day that lives in infamy or something. You know that something about FDR and Pearl
December
Harbor.
7th, 1941.
There you
A
go.
date that will live in infamy.
There you go.
The
So
United
you don't even know the
States-
rest of it. Right?
No,
Come
I'm
on,
about to do it. Like, the United
he's reading
States
off
was
Google.
suddenly and deliberately attacked by
He's reading
naval
from
and
Google.
air forces of the Empire of Japan.
He's reading from Google. He's totally reading from Google.
No, I'm
There's
not.
no way
I do miss some of the cadence sometimes because there is a point where he asks that I can't remember how he does it, but he asks Congress for a state of war. Or he doesn't ask Congress for a declaration of war. He says that I asked Congress to declare a state of war. I'd have to actually read the prompter for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I remember that speech very well because I've heard it a lot of times.
I was gonna say it is a pretty base speech, to be fair. Okay, like if of all the presidential speeches that are pretty like crazy, there's 2 speeches that come to mind in times of disaster, and that's George Bush when he got up on that fire truck after 9/11, and then Pearl Harbor with that one. I think those 2 stick out the most to me. And then of course, yeah,
like I don't know if Bush should get any kind of like real credit for like, you know, being there at 9/11. I know that fucking his approval rating shot up to like 90%, but
Dude, it was
was that him just like this is me like checking myself a little bit, but I want your guys' opinion. is a moment like that really where it isn't the great man of history? It really is. It's just you have a moment, and if you can fill those shoes, you end up being kind of the man that history remembers. Or
I
is
think
it
is.
like
Yeah,
he
pretty
actually?
much.
Okay,
Because
yeah,
think about it. Because
I don't
like
think he's a great man. He doesn't strike me as this dude who was the great, glorious leader who's going to lead us against the war on terrorism. No, he was a fucking retard, and he just happened to, be able to speak one good speech in his life right when he needed to.
Dude, I hate to say
But-
is, I mean, come on, man. How much of this shit is right time, right place, wrong person? I mean, just,
Well,
you know?
That's
it
kind of
was
where I'm
right
at.
place-
One
it-
shot.
It was
Just
right
take
place. Let's be clear. It was right place, right time. Because from my understanding of that moment, it was a firefighter, I believe, that was in the crowd saying, "Can you make a speech or something like that?" It was something along those lines, and that's when he got up on the fire. He gave him the bullhorn. He said, "Here, make a speech." And then George Bush got up on that fire truck and said whatever it was he said. I forgot the exact words because again, attention span's too short. But
I don't remember. I remember the video, but I don't ever actually remembering the speech. And at least from anyone that I've talked to, it's not a memorable speech. It's not even.
I'm not
a
gonna
good
say.
speech.
Okay, wait. I'm not gonna say the speech in and of itself, just like the whole day that lives in infamy. Okay, like, but I when I hear it, that's when I'm like, yeah, I remember that was a really like impactful moment in history. Just like the whole, like I said, George Bush getting up on that fire truck thing, alongside the memes that were made after like that Secret Service dude was like whispering in his ear. There's been a few memes going around about that. But
I can't do the cadence on this at all, so forgive me for butchering this, but let it be here and known that for the world, though, or God damn it, I already fucked it up.
are you
Like,
reading from FDR shit again still?
no, motherfucker, this is Kennedy.
Oh,
Kennedy's speech.
Your accents are
of-
garbage.
Oh, I know they are.
I thought you
I
were
can't
on
do this.
FDR.
I gave you the warning beforehand. Apparently, y'all didn't fucking listen. But anyway, Kennedy's fucking speech when he's saying like we will bear any I actually need to rewatch this speech a bit again.
Was it
but,
that we don't listen or we got short attention?
No,
Both.
like no,
I
like
blame
a lot of it
technology.
is a lot of it is people don't listen, right? Like I'm a political nerd. Like I can literally go and talk to people about fucking Eisenhower's ad campaign because it's literally Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president. It's one of the best. It's a great campaign ad, and it's all animated. Literally, some of the people at Disney made it. But on the other side of this, real, there's great speeches for real. Kennedy's speech that he gives to that public or to the public about bearing any hardship and bearing any burden in defense of liberty. I wish more Americans actually knew that speech because Kennedy was a terrible fucking president, but he could talk. He could absolutely talk. And that was one of those great conversations that he actually did have with the American people.
Hey. Well, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and raid. Who to raid?
Don't rate anybody. Don't rate anybody because, rate TikTok. Rate somebody on TikTok.
That's what we're not going to do.
Damn, bro. Come on now.
Based.
Aaron Gibbs are live.
Don't rate Gibbs. That man don't deserve
give some love,
It's
man.
too late.
Give him some love.
It's too
Oh,
late.
who you rating?
Parallax.
Okay, that's acceptable.
Sarah is an excellent
That's acceptable.
Raid Parallax.
Osiris is a good Osiris is like a good 10th option.
All
But
right,
like
y'all.
that's if you really
Been a
like
good
it.
night. Catch y'all next
All right,
week.
guys.
Keeping up the new platform unless everybody just says tomorrow they did not like it. So we'll get this working.
Well, we just doing open panels?
Catch y'all next week. No, first I started off with a conversation with Alex Kirsch, and then we brought the conversation into